All right, everybody, welcome to the first webinar. Wait, slash that. This is not the first webinar, but this is an awesome chat of 2024, and it's around Cloud FinOps 101 event. We have another exciting lineup and thought leaders in the FinOps industry to help you understand FinOps and kick off the new year with basic understanding of various components of FinOps. Now, I want to play a little game. How many times did we say FinOps in this? I think that's number 5 now. And I'm not sure what you win if you get up to like 100, but we're going to try to cap that or at least get out of there. There's a huge shout out and thank you to all our guest speakers, including a special guest speaker that is an AWS billing geek, along with our participating sponsors from Veeam, Hyperg Glance, Cloud Zero, and ProsperOps. Also, we can't forget about Rory Wheeler, who is the best in the business when it comes to magic and entertainment. But first, let's get through some logistics and quick updates, housekeeping items, everything out of the way. And every guest will have a session. They'll have 20 minutes or 30 minutes and a Q&A afterwards, followed by some magic and raffle. Now, you're asking about the raffle? Stay tuned. I'm going to get to all of that in just a second. But this is meant to be an informative, fun. So please feel free to drop some questions, comments, high fives in the chats, emojis, whatever you want. And we'll take some of your questions and we'll ask them to our participating sponsors live. We'll try to get them answered for you. It's an interacting session. Now let's get to the prizes. We have some awesome prizes. We have some AirPods. We've got our Amazon gift cards, and we're saving the best for last. Is an Oculus headset. After every participating sponsor, we're going to do a raffle, and we're going to see who's going to win. Now, a little note and caveat, if you're in the continental United States, we're happy to ship these to you. If you're outside of it, we'll send you an Amazon gift card or be able to purchase this for yourself. That way we can save on all the logistics and customs and issues going around here. And we got a cool thing that we're doing, and it's all about social media. All you that are attending right now, when you see our sessions come up, do a screenshot. Put that screenshot on LinkedIn, tag Myer Media, and we're going to be selecting some random participation guests to win some Amazon gift cards. Yes, we're doing this out of the blue. Mac, they love doing all this cool stuff and everything going on. I got to do a little bit more. Sam and I have a lot of fun doing it. So hope you guys enjoyed this. All right, let's get through some things. Today, we're diving into the beginning of FinOps with engineering-led optimization. Should optimization happen at the engineering level first? Well, we're going to be talking about that with Cloud Zero. Next, how can you become successful with FinOps? Because it's always nice to start savvy. Hyperg Glance will be presenting 3 essential tactics for FinOps success. When you think of FinOps, are backups top of mind? But that's one area that I'm sure that you can minimize costs. It's best to understand and control your cloud backup costs with Veeam. And our last topic is about having your cake and eating it too. No, I'm sorry, I'm not shipping everybody cake, but in a matter of speaking, when you get started, there's always a question of usage versus rate optimization. But what if you could do them both simultaneously? And that's with ProsperOps. Now it's time to bring on our special guest speaker, Miss Marit Hughes, who's going to do some opening remarks around FinOps. Marit.
Hi, John. Thank you for having me. For those I have not met, which given our attendance list is a long list of people, my name is Marit Hughes. I am a specialist master at Deloitte in our government and public sector services practice. What that means is I help state, local, and federal governments here in the US optimize their cloud while meeting the constraints of acquisition regulations, which is about as fun as it sounds. But as you are working through building a FinOps journey in an existing account that you already have, or if you're switching roles, or maybe you're just beginning your cloud journey now, is really understanding the importance of communication and collaboration with your stakeholders. Today, we're going to have a lot of tactical discussions, right? Whether it's about how to optimize your backups, whether it's how to get your engineers to make good buying decisions, and everything in between. The reality is it all will require people to work together and collaborate in a way that is not historically how IT teams have operated. So for those of you who have been around the block in the on-premises world, you know that often teams are working in entirely segregated areas and they're not really collaborating. Or if they do, it's every 2 years, I need to go buy more servers. And when you move into the cloud, and particularly as you start to build a FinOps practice, the main thing that's going to come up is that you need to start building a coalition. And that coalition is not going to necessarily be the dictators that run your cloud environment, but that coalition needs to be people who are working together to meet this one goal of an optimized, cost-efficient, productive cloud environment. I'm known for some of the weird analogies that I pull up out of the thin air sometimes to explain stuff. And it's hard to come up with a really good analogy that talks about the importance of building out your culture in your practice. And one of the ways I think about it is when you're making any change in your personal life. So let's think about a diet. See, I told you, weird analogies everywhere. If you're trying to adjust your diet, you're trying to break your sugar habit, you're trying to get your 5 vegetables in every day, um, it really is important that you make sustainable changes and not kind of one day say, we're going to change our entire cloud environment and we're going to have all the best tagging and we're going to do all of our backups in the most efficient way, etc. You're going to have to move towards there. And now you're not just changing your diet, you're trying to change the diet of your entire neighborhood, right? It's going to take communication, it's going to take sharing, and it's going to take the meal prep, right? And that meal prep in a FinOps context is really taking the time to plan ahead for what is your priority within your organization. And what your organization's priority is not going to be mine, is not going to be Erik's, is not going to be Steve's, right? Because each organization has their own priorities, and your successful implementation of FinOps will be understanding what your organization's priorities are. For those of you that are working in a managed services provider, perhaps working in a consulting practice, it's not going to be just your priorities. It's going to have to be your client priorities as well. And all of that comes back to that communication and culture, right? So working with your engineers about how do you incentivize them to make good buying decisions, working so as you're getting ready to implement a new application that you are already thinking kind of on day one and working with your architecture teams about how can you schedule their build environments to turn off nights and weekends. Communication, communication, communication. And then the less fun part, building the documentation that goes on top of that communication and culture. Because we've all left a meeting saying we all agree on our path forward. But that's just conversation, and getting those things implemented and documented are how you sustain that culture going forward. So I'm about out of time. One of the things I encourage as everyone sits through our sessions today, there are going to be moments that maybe do not apply to you and your organization today. Still pay attention, remember the things, take the notes, save the links, because at some point it might be 3 months from now, it might be 6 months from now, it might even be a year from now. Something that was mentioned today will become your organization's next big priority.
All
John,
right.
I think that's my
Yep.
time.
That's awesome. That was actually perfect timing. Time to bring Rory back on because we're going to be having a complete and awesome magic trick showing. Let's see. Can we get Rory? There he is. Rory, welcome back.
Hey, thanks, John. Hi, Marit.
Hi.
Marit, it's actually great what you said. So if you don't know, my name is Rory Wheeler, and for a long time I did magic and mentalism, but now I'm actually an interpersonal communication expert, and that's how John and I met. So it's interesting that you say communication, 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 and I want to play a little game with you, Marit, and we're going to try and illustrate great communication.
Okay.
So let's do it. We're going to do a little perception test first. Okay. And
Okay.
this is simple. How many cards do you see, Marit?
I see 5 cards.
5 cards. That's excellent. So high five. You're off to a great start. Here we go. So I'm going to spread these out. Okay. And I just hold them up. I want you to think of one of those cards. Okay. You have one in your head?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. And how many choices? We'll use this one. How many choices did you have, Marit, out of the 5?
Do you mean how many did I think about choosing?
Yes.
I thought about 2 of them.
Okay. And which one did you go with?
I went with the 4 of clubs.
4 of clubs, but you thought of
The spade, the triangle one. Yeah.
You sure?
Sorry. Yes.
You
The
didn't.
one with the looks like a shovel.
Which one did you think of going with?
The queen.
The queen. It's interesting because we said we were going to do a little perception test. I went with the 3.
Yep, that was the one on the front.
But then I also had another 3. And then I had another 3.
3.
And then another 3.
Yeah.
And another 3. So I don't know what you were watching, but that's okay. Because now I understand how you process information, which is great because I tried to force you to think of the 3, but you're a very independent thinker, yes?
Something like that.
Part. Most people don't think about their choices when they make them. So, for example, I'll take a little coin like this. Now, this is my left hand, and this is my right. This is my right, and this is my left. Mm-hmm. Which hand do you think the coin is in, Marit?
Your left.
So this one. This is my left. Yes. Would you bet $100 on it?
No, because I've learned one thing from all those Vegas trips for reInvent: never bet cash.
You would have won $100. That's okay, because I know that you're an independent thinker, so I had to put it to the test. But we're not going to use a poker step, okay? Because we're not going to do the Vegas thing. And we're going to do something much more difficult. This is a game called the Wheel of Fortune. Now, this matters. I'll show you why. Because right here, underneath this bag, is a broken beer bottle.
Okay.
Yes? And under here is nothing, but I'm going to start to spin the wheel. Like that. Now, I don't know which one the beer bottle is going to be under, and you don't know which one the beer bottle is going to be under. But the beer bottle is going to be under one of them.
Okay.
So, take the bags like this. Get rid of this. Marit, what you choose is going to determine the whole show for me.
Okay.
I'm going to smash whichever one you choose.
Okay.
Okay? So listen, this is not like worth $100. This is worth my hands. This is my career. So there's no pressure on this, Marit.
Okay, so somebody's got an emergency kit in the space with him, right?
Now, I have missed this, Marit. Either time.
Okay.
All right. Do you want me to smash the right hand, or do you want me to smash the left?
The left.
All right. You want me to smash this one?
Yes.
Fair choice. Ready?
Yes.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
I don't have a Mac, so you're not getting the big celebration I got.
Wait. I'll do it for him.
Marit. Yes. Thanks, everyone.
That was awesome. Marit, thank you so much for the opening remarks. Thank you so much for joining for this session. I always appreciate, sitting down, talking with you, not only about FinOps, AWS billing, because, you and I have worked together for a number of years, but I really appreciate you just joining and providing everybody some information to get started in FinOps.
Yeah, absolutely. And for everyone who is wondering about the connection between Magic and FinOps, sometimes trying to make those calls on what the best decision is feels a little bit like telling a stranger to slam their hand into glass. So, but you've got to bring the research and have the conversations.
That's awesome. Thank you, Marit. Once again, I really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the speakers.
All right. Well, everybody, it's time for our very first and our next guest. And you know what? Before I'm not going to do any justice introducing him. I think it's time we bring Erik on there and give him a chance to introduce themselves.
All right. Hey, John and everyone on the call today. I'm Erik Peterson. I'm the CTO and co-founder of CloudZero. It's fantastic to be here. And I want to talk about a very simple topic. Every engineering decision is a buying decision. I want to talk.
Wait. I got to stop you there. Who said it first, man?
Who said it first? Hey, it's something that has been on my mind for over 7 years now. I started talking about every engineering decision is a buying decision years ago. And I literally fell out of my seat last year at reInvent when Werner was up on stage after 10-year hiatus, finally talking about cost as one of the cloud's superpowers again. And the only little detail is he said, as someone on Twitter said, so I've officially started the name changing procedure and I'm on my way to change my name to someone on Twitter. But you know what? I'm dedicated to the cause. I'm there for it.
Erik, first of all, I'll just say this, and it's I want to say confirmed because I recorded it, but in May of last year, you actually said that during one of our panel discussions. So I'm not saying you said it first, but there are solid evidence that you did say it first. I'm just saying.
I love that there's a few artifacts out there on the internet. The internet never forgets, as we know, right? So I love the fact that we're going to talk about, FinOps 101 and where folks should start, because a lot of times we forget about the engineers, we forget about the people who are actually building the software and everything that's going into the cloud. And there's a really important and easy way to start with the engineers to get quick value out of FinOps practice. But we're going to tie it back to a couple of things that Marit said. Marit, you're one of my favorite people in the world. Communication is at the center of this. And we've got to think about when we go and look for that initial visibility into cloud spend, that communication, who are we going to be communicating with? We've got to talk to the business, but let's not forget about the people who are building.
Erik, help me understand, engineering-led optimization. In the beginning, when you think about it, a lot of the buying power that used to happen in traditional method of on-premise happened through procurement, through finance. They controlled the keys and everything. Now, within your cloud environment, the keys and the power have kind of addressed down to the engineering level where I can click a button and accidentally spend over $50,000 in one day or 1 hour or something like that. But how is engineering-led optimization key when you're looking at implementing FinOps in the beginning or implementing the culture within an organization?
There's so many good things to pursue there. If we think about the power that the software engineer has today, it's simply kind of mind-boggling, actually, right? Like you said, with a click of a button, I can be spending money, or with a line of code, I can be spending money. And overnight, the procurement conversation has really moved from traditional IT into the world of software engineering. And there is this tight coupling between a well-architected system and a cost-effective one. And so when we start to build and we start to think about our cloud spend, it sometimes can be a little bit difficult to get our arms around where all that money is coming from or where it's being spent. We might turn to the things that we're familiar with, buying better, for example, trying to buy ROIs or savings plans, which is an important part of any strategy. Turning off the things that you don't need, also an important part. But what is driving the things that I'm buying ROIs for? What is driving the things that I'm trying to turn off or clean up on the weekends? Well, it's those engineering decisions. And so with the engineers in mind, if we take all that visibility that we shoot for in the first moments of a FinOps program, and we think about who we need to communicate with, you've got to make sure at a one-on-one level that you're involving part of your engineering team, whether it's your leader of engineering, the leader of that DevOps team or lead architect. Bring them into this. And Werner brought out a good point of view as well when he was talking about it on stage at reInvent. He started talking about cost as a non-functional requirement, something I've also been real huge proponent of for years now, which is that you've got to bring that into the design process as well. And it's not hard. You're not going to distract your team, but you're bringing them into the conversation. A lot of FinOps is about involving other people in the organization in the conversation so they can understand why you're spending this money, because it's all about getting a return on that investment.
Erik, I know top of mind for a lot of engineers is that I don't have time for cost. I don't have time to look at cost. I don't have time to monitor. I don't have time to worry about it because I've got all my SLAs to meet. I want to innovate and do exciting things. And I'm not paying the bill. Why is it crucial for engineers to now take consideration into this and visualization of what they're spending within the cloud and help the company help overall optimize? You said shut things down when they're not using it. It's very difficult. It's something that you spin up and you forget about. How can we help them?
Yeah, well, with any new technology, and it may seem a little strange to refer to the cloud as new technology, given that we've been here for over a decade. But honestly, we're still learning how to build properly in the cloud. We've got to start to think differently about how we construct applications, even the notion of auto-scaling and turning the lights off when you're not using them. can still be new concepts to some teams, but it's important for folks to understand that there are consequences for their actions. And the way I think about it from an engineering perspective, I'm an engineer at heart, is I have a strong personal drive to build great systems. I want to build software that scales. I want to build software that delivers value. I want to build that product that's going to make my company successful. And one of the dimensions that I need to think about is how much money does it cost to deliver that? Now, I don't need to think of it in terms of total dollar amounts. Sometimes we get a little bit confused about how to track this spend. Knowing how much money I'm totally spending on EC2, an interesting but kind of unhelpful statistic. What's more helpful is to understand that cost in terms of the business, or in terms of my team, or in terms of my accomplishments or work personally as an engineer. And that's where that communications comes in. If I'm building a product to deliver a transaction, how much does it cost to deliver that transaction? What's my return on investment? If I optimize around simple metrics that are tied to my business, as an engineer, I'm going to be more connected to my business. I'm going to build more cost-effective software, and I'm ultimately going to make my company more profitable. That's that efficient growth that I think everybody is trying to get at right now. We're well past the growth at any cost, phase of cloud growth. We now need to figure out how to focus on efficient growth so that we can build profitable software.
Erik, I know we're talking about the engineering-led optimization, but why is cloud cost so prevalent now versus what it used to be? Like, nobody even really cared about it. They kind of just went in and started deploying out, testing out, building out all the stuff. And now within the past few years, not only FinOps has become so prevalent, cloud financial management, everything has been so kind of like, oh my God, my bill is astronomical. Why is it so more important now than before?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. Obviously, we've been looking on what's going on in the economy. It's easy to point at things like that. But I think, honestly, it's just a matter of maturity. We have grown from where we started. For some of us, our journey into the cloud started in kind of unnatural ways. We may have lifted and shifted existing data center applications. We may have inherited systems that were running. We may have just suddenly found ourselves operating in a cloud environment. However we got there, we're now operating in an environment that presents us with different ways to build software. And what got us there isn't going to get us to the next level. We have to think about using the APIs and the platform capabilities. And I'm not talking about just cloud native, like let's go with Kubernetes or try the next buzzword. I'm talking about really thinking about how you build differently. And that is where the engineers can actually be a very powerful part of the conversation. We call it engineering-led optimization, because when you bring the engineers into the conversation, you let them understand, hey, the systems that you're building, the transactions we're doing, the products that we're selling, this is the costs associated with doing that. You'll be quite amazed at how quickly a software engineer or developer working in that team, or even an architect, can go, wait a second, I wrote that code. That single line of code is costing $1 million. I gave a talk out in QCon last year about $1 million lines of code, literally one line of code costing companies millions of dollars. And they moved that line of code or made a small change and cut that cost out of their budget almost instantaneously. It's one of the fastest ways to get there. And for a lot of companies right now who are looking at the budget and they're trying to think, how do I retain my people? How do I avoid that layoff? How do I figure out how to run more efficiently? Engineering-led optimization could be sometimes the fastest path there, because we've already done a lot of the other things, the hygiene, the planning around how I'm buying, that we need to now move into how we're building.
I like the analogy you use of talking about moving that one line of code and saving them a lot of dollars. But in reality, and there's a question in the chat. By the way, everybody that's dropping questions, emojis, and all the comments that are happening in the chat, I love it. I'm actually following those along on the screen, and I'm pulling one into it. Erik, one of the questions is, and with FinOps, their survey last year said 33% of engineers did not perform action. They could not get them to perform action. And it always feels like an uphill battle to get engineers to actually perform these actions. These reports, we're saying, hey, do this, do that. How do you tackle that uphill battle to get them to change that one line of code or to right size or to shut these things down during the weekend?
Yeah, the FinOps Foundation survey is fantastic. And for those who haven't participated in that or contributed to that, you really should. And the data that they're producing is amazing. You can go to data.finops.org. And one of the questions that really has, over the years, like you said, getting engineers to take action. Now, what I think most interesting about that is, what's the perspective of this? It's FinOps practitioners, it's folks who have been in the DevOps or architecture space, it's parts of the business, those folks in finance who have been trying to get engineers to take action. The challenge I think that we've seen over the years is that a lot of teams have gone to the engineers and said, hey, just do these things and we'll save a lot of money. But that's not very inclusive in terms of involving them in the conversation. What I find better and more effective, and this is certainly back to that theme of communication, is just to bring that visibility down to the teams we're building. Help them understand the costs of what they're creating. And when they make a change, help them get feedback as quickly as possible on what is happening. We've got customers who have gone out there and made single line changes, get the feedback directly from Cloud Zero immediately right into Slack, and then they turn around and realize, wait a second, that one line of code change or that configuration change we just made, that bumped the bill up by 20 or 30%. Let's go back that out. Let's go rethink differently about that. But what's even more exciting is to see the engineering team get just jazzed about making changes and seeing that bill come down and realizing they're the ones who had the effect of that. That's where you start to build this flywheel in your teams, and almost like it's magic for the theme of the day, you get those engineers to start building out more efficient systems, and they do it on their own because they want to, in their heart, build well-architected systems. Every software engineer wants that.
I think every software or engineer likes to be challenged. So if you challenge them to save more in a way that's automated or a way that's more efficient, they're going to be like, I see your challenge. I think I can do better at that. But, and Matt Kozer, I got to pull in your comment. You actually have like big spender of the month. And it's like a dashboard or something. I'm assuming it's a dashboard. I don't want to say a shaming dashboard, but basically, hey, you're the big spender in a month and you never want to make it there. So it's like a challenge, a gamified method that you want to make sure that your engineers don't make it and they can do it, a lot of cost saving method, or you have a dashboard that says the biggest saver of the month, right? I've saved the company X amount of dollars. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, that's certainly one great way to do it. You can gamify it a little bit. You can give people, but honestly, it's just about data. Right? Think about what a software engineer day in the life for them, right? They're building something, they're looking at the feedback, they're seeing if it's performant, if it's operating. They're working off of all those signals. And the faster you can get that data to them, the more likely they're going to react to it and actually get the outcome that you're looking for. So that's why it's important to involve them early. Even if they don't immediately take action on that or do something with it, you're involving them, you're giving them the input. And a lot of FinOps teams out there, they start with an army of one. Right? Even before it was called FinOps, you've got one person out there kind of carrying that flag, believing in this, and they're trying to figure out how are they going to get the organization to move in this direction. It doesn't start with showing up and trying to tell everybody what to do. It starts with showing up and giving people the information to start making good decisions on their own and involve them in that process and communicate with them. It's super, super powerful. Some of our customers have done that, and what we've seen is they start with just a few engineers, they start to see that progress, and then almost overnight, kind of organically, they all start to adopt it. Some of the customers that we have, their entire engineering team is logging in and checking on their costs. When they do a deployment, they're logging in or they're looking at Slack for that alert to see if it met the goals that they were shooting for, and it's infectious. I really love to see it play out. The other piece is, to think about constraints. Building software is about constraints, and constraints drive innovation. Sometimes people ask me, hey, if I give my engineers one more thing to focus on, is that going to slow down our innovation? And it actually has quite the opposite effect. Think about some of the most complex systems ever built. They had huge constraints on their ability. Well, now we live in the world of the cloud where a lot of those constraints have disappeared, right? I've got infinite scale. We have this one constraint, though. I do not have infinite wallet, right? So we have to figure out how we're going to build efficient systems from the start, and that means getting engineers in the conversation. Every engineering decision, it's a buying decision. It's that simple.
I think you should coin that term before anybody else does. I know I've heard it from you first, and it was cool when we were at reInvent that it was said, and we've captured it. Erik, one of the questions I saw in the chat is about reporting, and that's one of the key and critical things is accurate reporting, but how important it is to have trusted reporting.
Trusted reporting. Well, the data has to be spot on. I come from a security background. particularly application security. And in those years, there was a lot of pressure to get this data from the security team down to the engineers as well. But they were tuning out because the data just wasn't accurate. That's a lesson I learned the hard way personally. And it's really key. If you're going to bring in an outside group or your engineers, they don't want to have to go chase ghosts, right? So you've got to tie it down to the things that matter to them, tie it down to the code that they're actually writing or creating. And that's all about allocation and visibility and making sure that even if your tags are okay or you haven't done a good job of organizing, you can actually break all that down so that people see the right data at the right time at the right place. And if it's not accurate, they're going to tune out. So it's a huge focus of any team to make sure they're getting it there. What I would tell folks though is don't try to go tell those teams what to do. Just focus on getting them that data. They're going to figure out what the right thing to do with that information in hand. You're not going to have to be chasing after them if you give them the tools to go make better decisions, better buying decisions themselves.
Erik, there are so many great conversations. I want to pull one in, and I'm going to probably butcher the name. Is it Heman? Can you share examples of successful cost optimization strategies implemented by organizations?
Oh, gosh, so many. From the single lines of code where we've seen customers go out there, deploy a change, suddenly realize costs are growing 10,000, 20,000 on their way to spending $1 million that month because of a single mistake that they made. And being able to roll that back when it was just a learning experience versus, who knows, a life-changing experience for that company. There's also just the opportunity to have these things kind of grow organically with your engineering team. So some of the examples I've seen, even during the first week of deployment, engineers starting to see that data, cutting $2, $3, $4, $5 million out of their cloud spend in that moment, just because they've realized, wait a second, that thing that I build, that's how much it costs. The other item is something that Cloud Zero is really well known for as well, which is unit economics, right? This is how we allocate spend directly to the units of measure or the components that your company, your business focuses on. If you're in the business to deliver meals, what does it cost to deliver a meal? Or if you're delivering, building a system that delivers transactions or operates, an online store, what does it cost for somebody to purchase something or a credit card transaction? When you can break down that spend at a unit level to the things that matter most to your business, that is all the magic you need in order to get those engineers tied into that, because that's the way they think as well in terms of those functions or features that they're building and delivering to their customers.
Well, actually, you touched on that. Functions and features to be able to deliver to their customers. There's got to be a balance between trying to deliver all these functions and features as well as saving costs within your environment and making sure you do it in an efficient manner and following the FinOps culture, though, right?
Yeah. I think a lot of customers are sometimes surprised to learn. I was having this conversation earlier today that just a few of their customers might account for the majority of their spend. And it's tough to understand the relationships between some of how your customers interact with your system and how that drives costs. One of the things Cloud Zero can do is bring that spend down all the way to the individual query or component or container or part of your system that is actually responsible for that, which really helps you connect with the people, because ultimately it's all about the people, right? The people who are building, the people who are managing, the people who are trying to build profitable businesses. Connect it back with the people who are going to make a difference. And when you do that, then you solve that problem that's been that number one challenge in FinOps all these years, getting engineers to take action. All you needed to do was give them the right data at the right place, tie in allocation, strong capabilities around allocation and visibility, unit economics to tie it down to what the teams and businesses are actually doing. It's unbelievably powerful, and it's the secret to getting engineers engaged.
I'm curious at what the percentage is going to be for the 2024 FinOps survey with engineering performing actions. I'm waiting for it to come out. I know it's usually like March or April. We'll be reviewing that for everybody. Erik, here's another question. I think this is right up your alley. How can we strengthen policy enforcement to prevent unauthorized spending and resource misuse?
This is a tough one because a lot of the cloud providers themselves don't have great tools to prevent things from being spent in the first place. A lot of times you have to go in there and be very vigilant and quick to respond. And that's okay, because if you're quick to respond, and we live in this on-demand world, you might spend just a few $100s, and that's a learning experience for everyone. But if you're slow to respond, it could mean the difference of 10, 20, 30, $50,000 accidentally spent. So what I like to get people focused on is the timeliness of the data, the accuracy, and the targeted nature of the data. If you can get that underway, you're going to build better trust across the teams. You're going to actually let the engineers know that you're not going to treat them like kids who need to have their hands slapped, but instead you're trusting them to build great, well-architected systems, and you're going to give them the data so that they have the visibility just as fast as you do as a FinOps professional, so that they can make better decisions. At the end of the
I got to
day,
give a shout out to everybody in the chat real quick. Sorry, Erik, I didn't mean to jump in there. Jeff, Abhishek, thank you so much for all the comments and everything going on there. Erik, they're giving you a lot of kudos on it. Erik, can I jump in and just ask you, we've talked about engineering-led optimization and really kind of all the components that go to it for FinOps. And I know we say cloud FinOps, but FinOps does go beyond the cloud in a lot of aspects, because it's thought of as you build those applications or you try to lift and shift and try to get them to it, you always want to look at the application itself. But, Erik, you've been talking about this engineering-led savings, and, does it go beyond discounts? I mean, more than saving, not only your EDP, but your, right sizing, doing your reserve instances. Do you have any examples of how they actually played out for you or your customers?
I mean, don't make any mistakes. Buying better is always an important part of the strategy. In fact, Cloud Zero has gone out there and partnered with actually some great companies. Today, we're going to hear from ProsperOps, for example, who has done an amazing job at automating and making that process just as optimal as it possibly can be. You've got to be buying better. What's really critical when you get to the other parts of the organization, though, is you almost want to take those things and let them drift into the background, because you want to show people what their actions, the work they're doing, and how that's affecting the costs. So there's a strong finance team component of this. They're out there making sure that stuff is getting purchased better. They're out there making sure that things like EDP discounts or reserved instances or things like that, depending upon where you are in your cloud journey, you might not be yet at that stage. You could be very early into this and kind of thinking, well, maybe I should buy an RI or a savings plan. I would tell you, start out with some good habits from the beginning. Put that stuff on autopilot. Go work with a partner who can automate that stuff for you. That's the most optimal outcome. And then get that data, like I've been talking about here, from an engineering-led optimization perspective, get that data driven down to the teams. But make sure you're not, confusing the teams. When somebody goes and buys an RI, you don't want your cost bouncing around for the engineers. So they're going to wonder, well, what did I do? I didn't do anything, right? And there are ways to separate the different cost types and how you report that. That's where a platform that you choose, something like Cloud Zero, can really come in handy, because you're not going to show them all the cost benefits of some other activity or some other team. You're going to focus in on just the things that the engineers are concerned with that day because of the code they're building. So it's important to think of that holistically. I would never tell anyone, though, that it's not a big, it's not a, just one thing. There are a number of activities that anyone needs to think about. Think about buying better, but at the same time, think about building better.
Buying better, building. Oh, you always have these key catchphrases. I'm gonna have to claim a couple of those if you don't mind.
You're more than welcome, John. More than welcome.
I will definitely quote you on it. I think automation is key within any type of, in cloud in general, right? Cloud is meant to be elastic, right? But you have to automate so many things in order to get the best value out of the cloud. And automating your CRIs, automating your RIs, automating everything behind the scenes allows you to focus more on the business value, the driven, everything that's going to come with it. Why should I spend all this time doing this when I don't have all the tools and capabilities as a single person? And trust me, I don't want to use Excel spreadsheets. And I know Marit is still around, but she loves Excel. Just kidding, Marit. But going off it, Erik, I got time for one more question. And Duke put it in here. And Duke, I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit, because I think it's actually, how can you improve collaboration between IT, finance, business teams regarding cloud spend without the friction, and I'm adding the friction part, with the engineering teams?
Yeah, there's definitely friction. And, a lot of teams feel this. The key thing here is, one, help everybody understand that they're all talking, working, focused on actually the same thing. They want their business to be able to deliver value, to build happy customers, to build a profitable business. We all want the same thing. In fact, I often think that finance teams and business teams and engineering teams, they're all speaking practically this. They're all saying practically the same thing. They're just speaking different languages, right? And they all want the same thing. How do I get this task, this problem, the solution that I'm trying to build solved as efficiently as possible? So start with that conversation around, hey, we want the same thing. We're a company that sells widgets, and we want to sell that widget as profitably as we can. And we're going to work together to make it happen. In finance, you're going to make sure we're buying better. Business, you're going to make sure you're giving us the requirements so that we understand the goals of the business. Engineering, you're going to make sure that we're building as efficiently as possible to solving that goal. And together, you're going to build a fantastic solution. It's going to be faster. It's going to be more effective. It's going to make your customers happy. And it's going to be cost effective. What more could any software business ask for?
Well, I said we only had that one more question, but we got time for another one. And this is actually one that I'm pulling from the group, but I'm actually thinking about it is for the group, is what advice would you give everybody that's listening now or later on how they can achieve engineering-led optimization or implement it when they're starting out within their FinOps journey?
One of the important things is to bring the data to the teams themselves. Don't expect that they're necessarily going to go log into a platform. One of the key things that Cloud Zero focused on really early on was bringing that data directly into something like Slack. And I'm not talking about a million alerts that you're going to ignore, but an alert sent specifically to that team that just wrote that line of code that just started costing $1 million, right? Really targeted information. It's going to keep people focused, and it's also going to pull people into the process. If you can do that, and if you can structure that correctly, and that's something that Cloud Zero is really, really good at, then you're not going to confuse people. You're not going to disrupt the workflow. And believe me, you're going to see an uptick in innovation and how fast your teams can move because they can start to realize, hey, I did that. I caused that improvement to happen. I'm part of making this company successful. And it's so critical to really zero in on the right data at the right time. Too often we build these dashboards, send out an email alert, and just expect everybody to just kind of stare at that. You got to bring the data to the people. And to echo where we started with Marit's comments on communication, you got to figure out how to get the data flowing, that communication flowing directly to everybody involved: business, finance, engineering.
Erik, I was trying to write this down as you're going. You got to zero in on the right data, Cloud Zero. I mean, you know what? I'm so glad this is recorded. I'm going back and probably have like 20 highlights from it, from just all of your one-liners.
Hey, we're good. You know what? Maybe we'll do a talk just on that, but it's fantastic. Every time we talk, John, we get into something here, and we're on the cusp of something pretty big here. This is the future of how software will be built. We're moving into this era where people can build truly amazing, profitable things. The baseline for a lot of software organizations is like an 80% margin. I think people can get better than that when they think about truly building for the cloud, not lift and shift. And the only way you get there is to get those engineers involved and to realize, hey, leverage those APIs, leverage those things, lean on your cloud provider to deliver or use some of those services, serverless, for example, or some of the more managed containerized solutions. And you are going to be able to build things that have amazing margins, amazing profitability. It's available to us all. And I'm so excited to see the industry at large starting to focus in on building better. I think it's where all of us are going to be focused over the next decade with the cloud.
Erik, I definitely agree. Now it's time to actually bring Rory back on. Erik, don't go anywhere because Rory's coming back on for some more magic. I have no clue what he's going to do. Let's bring Rory back onto the stage. Rory, thank you for joining us again.
Thanks, John. Hi, Erik. Nice to meet you.
Hey, Rory.
Erik, I love what you were saying about it's not just buy better, it's build better. Yes? And you have to get the data to the people that need it when they need it. So we're going to play a little game with data. That's cool.
Right. Let's do it.
Now, this is important. You and I have not set anything up or prearranged it.
We have not.
Okay.
I'm a little afraid, Corey. But
it's okay. So here I brought, inside of this box, I brought a problem. Do you know what's inside of the box?
I do not know what's inside the box. But
do you know why you don't know?
Oh, no.
Because you don't have the data.
There you go.
Right? We got to get you the data. Here's the data. It's a Rubik's Cube.
I saw a comment earlier. Somebody was dying to see this Rubik's Cube solved. So I'm holding out hope.
Rubik's Cube.
My son knows how to do these. I have never been able to do one.
Have you tried?
Oh, many times.
Okay, so if you try and you don't achieve it, that makes you what?
It means me one step closer to one day figuring it out.
That's right. It's like Einstein, right? So let me ask you a question. If I were to step back this way and step back that way and it was solved, that would be interesting.
What?
That
Whoa!
would be mind-blowing. What just happened?
Whoa!
Yeah.
Somebody rewind. Can we?
You're doing it again, and I'll mix the cube like this, and you say stop.
Stop.
Right there?
Okay.
Okay, here's my question. Do you know the world record for solving a Rubik's Cube?
I'm guessing it's measured in seconds.
13 seconds.
It's 3.95 or 2.95 seconds. It was.
Okay, I was off.
2.95. I'm going to break the world record right now.
All right, I'm ready.
But not the current world record, the 1978 world record, which is like 7 minutes. And I'm kidding. Remember when I did this and I came back and it was solved again?
I swear I was watching your head the whole time. I don't know how you did that, but you're going to have to teach
think
me.
about this for a second. What I'm doing is I'm somehow putting the cube in some sort of pattern that I know. And then when I want to solve it, I go like this, and the cube is solved. Okay?
I mean, you must be an engineer because engineers can solve pretty much anything.
I'm speechless. I don't know.
This is the cool part. If I solve it, you expect it, yes? But if you solve it, it's better. Yes?
I would love to be able to solve
Okay,
it.
so we're going to solve it together, and this is how it's going to go. If you want me to turn the right, say right. If you want me to turn the left, say left. The top, say top. The bottom, say bottom. The back, say back. And the front, say front. Okay?
All right.
So just you start going. Just real.
Right, left, top, left, top, right, bottom, front.
Front.
Yeah.
Is that good?
I mean, I think we're headed in the right direction.
Do you feel influenced in any way?
I'm trying to feel something, but I feel it.
Here's the interesting thing. Eric, you just put this in Erik pattern. No person in history has ever put it in this exact pattern except for you. And
right. Yep.
before we started, see right here.
Teamwork.
I brought the second cube. Now, Erik, can you see this?
Yeah.
Because you matched one side.
What is happening?
And Erik, do you see that L there?
I do.
Not just one side. You matched two sides. And not two sides. Three sides. And not three sides. Four sides. Five sides. All six sides. That's pretty cool, yes?
We make a great team, Corey. Clearly.
Right. Here's the interesting thing. I told you that I was going to influence you. Back there, actually I'll do it the other way, back here, I brought a giant cube for the background.
Look at that.
That's as well. Let's see. Where are we? There we go.
Oh my God.
That's right. I got to orient this right. Where are they?
I see it.
Oh, yeah, it was just reversed. Oh, look at that.
Yes.
I mean, you blew my mind.
Yes.
Oh. That's awesome.
That's not the coolest part, though. Check this out. This is going to freak you out because I know we're running out of time. But I influenced you over here because I had another one.
It's in a glass.
That one's in a glass jar. And if I could really solve the world record, it would look like that. Yes? But that's not the glass jar, because if you took the glass jar, you'd go boom like this, and it would solve itself. Come on.
I mean, Corey, I think you're demonstrating the power of engineering-led optimization right there. That's what I.
Thanks for bringing the data.
That's awesome. Thank you, Rory, so much. I appreciate it. That was awesome. Erik, thank you so much for your presentation, your insights on the engineering-led optimization. I always enjoy our conversations, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
I am as well, John. Thanks for having me here, and mind-blowing. That was fantastic. Remember, everyone, every engineering decision is a buying decision. Thanks, John.
Great way to end. All right, everybody. It's time for our next guest. In fact, we have Steve Square joining us, and I'm not going to do any introductions for them because this is awesome. We're talking about Start Savvy, 3 essential tactics for FinOps success. I'm going to let them do their introductions, and guess what? They don't need me for this because they have their own presentation that's going to be superb. Stay tuned. They've got a lot to show you on it. Let's bring our guest onto the show. All right, we got Castano. I got to get out of this multi-pose. How do I change it? You know what? I know how I change it. Guys, it's all yours. Steve Robinson, go ahead and do your introduction. Pass it off to Castano, and we'll share your screen.
All right. Thank you, John. Good afternoon, everyone. We appreciate the opportunity to take everyone on a journey here is what we'd like to do. Kind of blueprint some of the themes you were hearing earlier and more of a kind of a practical guidebook and starting with customer. So when we think about customer, we think about the idea of unit economics and the idea of building and driving engineering decisions, factoring cost, and we think about automation. So we'd like to take a customer-centric, user story-based kind of approach to the presentation. Before I do that, I'd like to introduce my partner in crime here, John Castano from BTS. BTS is a partner. Premier partner of Hyperg Glance. John, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. So, yep, my name is Steve Castano. I'm one of the co-founders of BTS, Better Than Services. We're a professional services organization that specifies in partner-to-partner work. So a lot of what we do is going into other software companies, whether they be, SaaS or platform applications, and basically do a lot of things like cost optimization, helping them figure out what is their base cost, how are they interacting with things. And, we spend that extra time to get a little deep and kind of handhold everybody and get them started on their FinOps journey. And Hyperg Glance has been such a big part of that. So I'm thrilled to be here with Steve Robinson and, showing you guys what an actual entrance into a platform for FinOps will look like.
Excellent, Steve. And there's a great picture of you. I love that picture. All right. An engineer's engineer, I always say. So again, what we want to do is start building kind of a storyboard here around some 101 concepts, and then visualize those concepts and wrap them in customer story. So unit economics is a very important criteria for bridging those channel of communication between the FinOps FP&A organization and the engineering or the IT shop. Building costs, we've heard a lot about that earlier, into the design infrastructure. How do you go about doing that? What are some helpful platform visualizations that help you get there? And then automation and the optimization of this over time is a key strength. So we'll start with this idea of unit economics. And if you go out to the FinOps organization, FinOps Foundation, you can get a good handle on what this means, but it's primarily focused in this idea of looking outward to your customer and looking at what drives the consumption of the cloud estate. In the case of an airline, ticketing systems, reservation systems can be a driver. In the case of a multinational firm, you could have geographical distinctions. You can have end user and customer partitions. There's different transactional, business-driven ways of looking at what's driving your consumption. It's an important point, and it's a common point of interest, bridging that channel of communication between the FinOps organization and those that are building, maintaining, and operating the cloud infrastructure. So I'm going to pass it over to Steve and have him take him through a couple customer examples and scenarios, and then demonstrate how you can enable and actualize this in a platform.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I jump in here, I mean, we're following a lot of the same things that other folks have been talking about on the call. So we're gonna jump right in. A lot of people have been asking how you see it, how you educate people on it. So kind of as we look at the Hyperg Glance interface, this is basically where the rubber meets the road. The big thing to see here is that I saw a lot of people asking about, how do we do this in Cost Explorer and so on and so forth. And yeah, we're AWS focused in a lot of ways in this discussion, but a big thing here, like everybody was talking about, getting all the data. Here you can see right on the main screen, this is your multi-cloud dashboard. This tracks your entire inventory and shows you what you're spending across all of your deployments. And you can dig into it. And that's exactly kind of what we're going to do here, because this is great, but it's not actionable. So kind of the thing we want to see is we want to get a little deeper in here, and we want to see, okay, we know that something is going on in AWS. We want to look at why our AWS bill is there. So we can go into the AWS screen here, and similar, there's a Cost Explorer. Here you get your more detailed inventory on just AWS. And then you can continue to go further. You start to get into the Explorer, and this is where it starts to get really interesting. This gets a little crazy. I keep telling everybody, it looks like I'm going to go cross-eyed staring at a football play here, but this is the whole thing. The intelligent part here is that now you can start to, you can continue, I should say, to dive deeper. So when you go look at like this button here for dimensions, you can see here that you can actually filter this based on all kinds of different things. So you can go look at standard filters, which are basically just grabbing the largest metadata from AWS that is here. Your account, cloud platform, AWS versus Azure, what region it's running in. So if those metrics are important to you, you can dig into those. Then as you continue to go further, you see you can use tag filters. Now, tag filters, there's been a lot of chatting about tagging so far. These are the AWS native tags. So as your engineers and organizations are deploying things through infrastructure as code, even click opsing their way through it, as you start to tie things together, you start to get all of these tags that become more and more meaningful, and you can search on them. And the most important one here that we kind of want to highlight is on this concept of unit economics. So if you want to show somebody, say, a business tag filter, now this is separate. These are tags that you can apply at the platform level, because there's not just your engineering, your nerd-led tags, which people were talking about. How do you get people on board? Well, these are additional tags that you can put on top of things that don't flow back into Amazon. They're more for viewing them here. And a lot of people will spend a lot of time. You can see this gets fairly complex. You can put a ton of filters in, mix and match. And the incredible part then is there were a couple references to how do you bring people into the conversation. You can click share this view, and you see it kind of gives you a little quick, it copies it to your clipboard. And what's amazing here is this isn't a report. When this is created, this is live data. So when somebody clicks on that link, you can see here's an actual real business unit economics screen that we want to see. We're specifically looking at our baggage app. And to tie into what Steve Robinson was just saying, the incredible part here is if you're talking to the people that run the operations department, specifically in the business unit that handles the baggage application, now you can tie this into real world economics. How does it cost me? What does it cost me per 1,000 bags checked? What does it cost me per 1,000 travelers booked, per 100 flights, per day, per month, etc.? And then you can continue through this Sankey diagram to dig in here. So if I want to see specifically, what am I spending on EC2? I've noticed that cost seems to be going up and I don't like it. When you click on that, you can go in here and you can see the resources. You can get to this detailed view. And here's where you see everything that's in that EC2 environment that's consuming money. And as you click into it, you jump right into all the important stuff. The thing here is, no flip-flopping back and forth, copy and paste, 2 fingers on the screen, trying to read a tag from here and go there. When you click on summary, all the stuff that you would want to know from your regular AWS management console, that's right in there to begin with. And now you can see every meaningful piece of data about that resource that you're actually looking at. So that's kind of the biggest thing on where the rubber meets the road. So I'll throw it back to Steve and he can kind of explain to you the next steps and what you do once you get to seeing your unit economics.
Thanks, Steve. That was great. And so in summary, building that bridge of communication through visualizations and slicing up your cloud architecture driven by unit economics, what the end customer unit economic drivers are, is useful in taking out that friction in the management of the cloud estate. So the next thing we want to talk about is this idea of building cost consideration into your architecture or into your infrastructure design, not just one and done, but over time. Can you give us some customer examples of what you're hearing out there and seeing and actually implementing in this realm?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the biggest things we see with customers is that, again, they don't know exactly where to look. So one of the things that you can do with a FinOps focused tool is you can go in here and, like, before we saw a Sankey diagram and kind of what the finance people want to see. That's not exactly the nerd focus. When you start going in here, you can click on a diagram, and someone was mentioning before, real-time data analysis. How do we see things? Okay, maybe you have a Visio diagram somewhere that has your network or application logical topology written on it. You've got to go see what things are interconnected. What does it cost? But you can see as I'm going through here, we're looking at one of those diagrams, which, by the way, is automatically generated by reading all of the resource dependencies and links. And we can just overlay cost right onto it. So now we know it's the same as that first screen. Here's your Amazon account. Here's your Azure deployment. And there's the costs right in there of what each item gives you. And then you can say, okay, same thing where we clicked on the Sankey diagram and we wanted to see AWS. Now you can click on isolate here and click on group. Now we're looking at, oh, I missed it. Now we're looking at just the Amazon group. That's as we clicked in that Sankey diagram. Now you want to get a little deeper, and the engineers are saying, okay, what's connected here? You can go into your demo environment, see a summary, see exactly what the billing account number is, see where it's running, what account it's under, what cloud service provider it's under, and you can continue to drill in right on the diagram. So again, this isn't a diagram in Visio that's static, that someone had to spend 3 days collecting financial data and pasting it in there. This is live right in the environment. So if we click on demo and we click on deep expand again, now you get to a completely crazy diagram. This is your full diagram of everything that Hyperg Glance mapped out for you. And when you dig into that environment, like we were looking at a Kubernetes cluster before, you can dig into that cluster itself and see what are the actual compute resources here. What's running in EC2. There's one, I should say, of our Kubernetes nodes. We can see all the metadata. We can see compliance data here, and tags and filtering are never gone. We can go in here and say, okay, we're using our airline example. We want to focus on the baggage app. So we're looking at one cluster. We turn on the baggage app tag, and now instantaneously, we're just seeing the things related to that. And this is where engineers can start to really dig in. They can zoom in here and they can see, as I'm going to change things, you can just follow the lines. We're all familiar with how a flow diagram works. If a cost changes here, what else is it going to affect? How is it tied together? And when you come up with something you want to keep for posterity, something you want to send to someone that might not be logging into your FinOps tool, the incredible part is you have absolutely live data on your screen right here. If you want to send it to someone, you just click export and you get to export in just about every consumable report fashion you can have. So you have the live view and the report built in. It gives you every mode of communication possible. And that's how you start to get that shift left. We were talking about, Cloud Zero guys are talking about build better. This is how you get to build better. Let your engineers look at what they've built, what it costs, and what the effect of those changes are. Send them a shared link to the diagram right in Hyperg Glance. Send them a report that they can look at afterwards.
Right. So if we connect the dots and we look at dashboarding capabilities, and in terms of the FP&A or the FinOps, the finance side of the house and their persona, and we think about, they see outliers in spend over time, right? From a reactive perspective, you can go back and retrospectively look at where is the driver behind that cost overrun relative to the architecture, right? You can also use it in terms of new applications, new architectures, and thinking about what is the cost consideration go into this in terms of optimizing that architecture, but starting with the unit economic, the business purpose, the customer, right? That's the driver of the consumption, driving that into a visualization that an architect appreciates and a FinOps person can understand in terms of that channel of communication. So the third thing that we were going to talk about in terms of the journey is, that's great. Now I understand how I can carve up the customer-centric business view to my cloud estate. I can drive into infrastructure design considerations around that cost, point in time, and over time. Okay, that's great, but this is a lot to consider. Are there pieces of cloud management and optimization? And when we say optimization, it's not just one and done, take cost out. It's over time. Most cloud estates are growing at 20% year on year. So it's the cost avoidance really over time that factors into this equation. But what are the pieces when we think about managing this large estate in many cases that we can consider around automation? How does automation and optimization play in the first two themes that we talked about?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest things that I think we need to highlight for folks is kind of some of the things I saw in chat. How do people get started? How do we tie this together? I think there were just some questions about, drilling down in detailed parameters and things, features for visualizing things. One of the biggest things we talk about is one of the first things you need to do, get your low-hanging fruit. And that's kind of what this next process takes into account, is get rid of your junk. So as we kind of dive in here, we're looking specifically at AWS costs and potential savings here. We can go check on exactly which things are being highlighted. And you can see for this screen in potential savings, this is a big part of leaving things behind. Some of the automation that we're talking about, here's a perfect example, unattached EBS volumes. As we go into something like that, you end up seeing that it happens far more often than you think. In one environment, for instance, here's a whole giant list of EBS volumes. And, you might say, okay, nickel and dime, $20, $45. But if you have a process, say a deployment process, that every time it runs and it kills, an EC2 instance and creates a new one and leaves that EBS volume behind, that stuff is going to start to decay. And as you go in here and you look, you can see unattached volumes, and you can go in and see the specific details for one volume over another. So here, if we go back and we look specifically at some of the Kubernetes stuff we were looking at, here's a great example of something that's basically been left behind and the tools to fix it. When you jump over here on the left side of the screen to adding an automation, here we can literally create a rule so that we can pick up on that thing. So you can see, you can pick which automation you want. And here's the money click right there, delete the EBS volume. And then you can put those custom rules in there to say, hey, if an unattached volume is floating around in this particular environment, a dev or sandbox environment, and it's sitting there doing nothing for a certain period of time, go ahead and delete it. So that's kind of, a way to help with some of the things folks have mentioned. How do you get engineers involved? Rather than make an engineer do manual work and quote unquote clean their room all the time, show them how to create an automation that'll clean it up for them. Another big part of this and how you get the engineers involved is utilizing things like reserved instances. So when we go in here, we can see here's a list of the reserved instances complete with recommendations. It's telling you, hey, based on your resource utilization and size, this might not be right sized. And when we click on AWS right sizing here on the left side, here are exactly the things you need to do, complete with quick clicks to do it. So again, rather than bouncing back and forth, you can just click on buy a reserved instance for this instance, and you can cover it and follow the exact recommendations. The other things I saw, again, people talking about in the chats already built in is how quickly do you know about something? We were talking earlier about how quickly you see something and reacting fast, real time, not spending money, trends and anomalies. Here you can see what's coming down the pike, what's normal for you. And with anomaly detection, you can actually see what's coming out, click on it quickly, see exactly where that cost came from and click analyze. And here's where you actually see your detected anomalies, where something outside of baseline happened in a part of the environment it wasn't supposed to, on a day it wasn't supposed to. And all these anomalies can be delivered to you via alerts in just about any way you can imagine. Email, integrations to Slack, someone mentioned, and they can tell you, hey, right now something is going on in your environment, and it doesn't look good for you. And when you click on that, you actually get a specific definition of what happened, why it happened, and it takes you right here to the resources that show you. So if you want to drill down and find the individual component, you've got that. And that's basically what it looks like when you see those anomalies. Let's say you have a bunch of them. This is a big graph. Again, we're still not leaving behind the same thing. So if you're specifically looking at the baggage app and components that go in there, there's all your filters. You can go right back in, see exactly what you want. And don't forget, the sharing this view is right there. So if you spend 10 minutes clicking through this and you want to share it, again, you just go right to share, send somebody that link. They jump right into the view you created and continue to see live data, not just a frozen in time clip of what you got when you made it. And then, Steve, you can kind of take it from here and let people know what to do once they get this far.
No, that's excellent. What I'd like to do is get out of the tech and up level a little bit in terms of, FinOps is a new term for what I consider old discipline, right? And it's the traditional systems, process, and people, right? And it is a cultural shift in terms of those channels of communication between finance, the business, and the IT shop and the architects. You see a lot of different scenarios out there with your customers and their different application sets and the verticals that they serve and customer sets that they serve. For our audience here, it's likely a mixed audience of financial oriented personas and architects are more technical. How do you get started? Where's the first place to kind of first step to take, first place to look at in terms of bridging that channel of communication and looking at the layers of abstraction that we went through here in terms of unit economics, driving design and driving costs in your design decisions, and then automation? Where do you start?
I mean, the first thing we do with our customers is get the right data. So the first thing has to be, you got to clean out the junk. Assessing how much a particular transaction is costing you, like using our example, whether that's, cost per bag checked, cost per seat reserved, whatever your business might be, cost per product delivered, cost per login. If your data is clouded up by a bunch of junk that you left around, you're not really going to know what it takes to operate your business because you're overspending for things you don't need. So get the junk out, dig in here. And I can't say this enough. I said it on our podcast with John at reInvent. Tagging. Use the tags. They're your friend. It's metadata. You can make it. A couple people were asking, is it off the shelf? Yeah, there's some suggestions in there, the standard tag filters. But the idea is you can put in anything you want. Tag it to any metric you want to see. Once you start tagging components in an environment and that moves down, then you can go get that baseline. So I'd say for where to start, your steps 1 and 2, clean out the junk, collect your clean data, and figure out what you want to measure, cost per whatever.
Right. And that's an important point because the business level unit economics, the metrics that are measured are specific to verticals, specific to companies, even departmentally specific in large multinational firms, right? So it's understanding and starting the conversation there, looking external to their end customers, and then driving down into the technical fabric of their cloud estate and understanding how they leverage into building cost into their design as well as automation over time. Our key constructs of a mature FinOps shop. But you've got to start with just basic inventory visualization. What do I have? Where's the low-hanging fruit? What can we action immediately to get us closer to that efficient operating model over time?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, John, back to you.
Well, actually, I wanted to leave this on the screen just a little bit. Everybody, pull out your phones quick. Scan the QR codes going to Hyperg Glance and Better Than Services. I always like QR codes. You know, we had a couple of those chips to reInvent. They're really cool things. The QR has come back. Guys, I got to thank you for an awesome presentation. First of all, I love going right into the console and seeing some of these things in action. We can talk all day about some of the stuff and the visualization of it, but seeing how you're doing some of those is really cool, and diving into it. The chat has actually so many questions. I gotta give a shout out to your team for answering some of the questions, but I've captured some that were not answered just yet, and we'd like to answer them live on the show. We are talking about starting savvy, 3 essential tactics for FinOps success. And you talked about unit economics earlier. How do you work towards the level of analysis that you're looking forward to?
You can actually go in reverse order, ironically, if you're just taking your first step in the FinOps, meaning if you can find outliers of cost within the context of your architecture, and then understand, okay, that app, that database, that network flow, what business transaction is that supporting? So let's just stick with our baggage metaphor, right? So it's supporting the baggage system, right? And then, so now you've kind of gone in reverse order. You've identified low-hanging fruit because you're kind of 101ing into this, if you will. And then you're abstracting up to the business level, right? And the metrics that you want to, then you can bridge the lines, the tie lines across the IT shop and the finance to have a baggage claim, business process, cost driver conversation, right? So you can actually look at it that way. I think it's important to understand what you want to measure. If you don't know what you want to measure and what's important, more succinctly, what's important to measure, then you're really just grabbing at straws, right? So understanding the business metrics that you want to measure is key, and then driving that down in your cloud architecture one time, and then over time is the key. Leveraging automation.
Well, you're talking about metrics, and let's jump over to John asked this. What type of metrics and data can be monitored through the platform?
I'll let Steve answer that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just about everything. I mean, the whole thing here is that a big thing to realize about FinOps platforms is they exist in the reporting space. There's not agents. You don't have to go and spend, days, hours, months, whatever it might be to install something on every EC2 instance and wait for it to come in. This is connecting to your AWS management console. It's hitting the same billing report that you download, but being that we have some Excel lovers in the group, I don't mean to offend anyone, but I cringe at the thought of downloading a utilization report, opening that up, creating pivot tables, and trying to attribute all this nonsense together. Because anyone who's done it can tell you the level of detail in there is absolutely massive. That's the amazing thing about doing this in a visual tool. That's why FinOps is not a spreadsheet thing anymore. There are platforms to help you, because you can go in there, you can look at tagging, you can look at runtimes, you can look at region, VPC, you can pick a single node. Let's say you have a load balancer that just went haywire and generated a crap ton of utilization charges for data ingress or egress. Fine. Go find that in your diagram right here. Click on that one thing, see what it connects to. And in the summary tab, in the compliance tab, you can see everything that's happening. Who owns it, who touched it, what policies are attached to it, where it runs, what other resources it touches. If it's stored somewhere, it'll come into a good FinOps tool, and then you can sort, tag, and view it all graphically.
Guys, when we talked at reInvent, I think one of the key things was getting connected and immediately realizing the environment and visualizing everything and pulling in the information. And I think that's one of the features I really enjoyed about it. I got Flora actually asked, and I know one of you guys answered this, but I want to present this to the audience, because when we talk about FinOps, and I know a lot of people, we talk about AWS, we talk about Azure, GCP, like some of the hyperscalers, and we focus on a couple of the other ones, but FinOps is for almost anything, right, in the implementation. Flora asks, does it support multi-cloud environments?
Absolutely. Yeah, including K8s or Kubernetes. So, and that's in one pane of glass, proverbial pane of glass. You've got, we had to move fast through that. Steve did, but you've got one single unified view into your cloud estate across AWS, Azure, and Kubernetes, and we're adding GCP first half of this year.
Nice.
Yep.
I like that. Everybody that's dropping messages in the chat, I love it. Keep it going. This is interactive. Thumbs up. We want to pull in as many questions as possible. None of these questions that we have is we want to make sure that the audience is getting the answers they're looking forward to. David just answered. Oh, Alex, actually, what about things like Versa, Heroku, Fly, etc.? Any of those supported in the future or releases? Thoughts?
I mean, we're always evaluating our roadmap, starting with customer, starting with what we see out there as the need around, deep visualization that's going to drive these connections, a conversation between finance and architects. I will say that our specific charter doesn't call for hybrid cloud; it's multi-cloud. So any type of on-prem, other with the exception of Kubernetes, we do support Kubernetes in a hybrid format in terms of visibility within our platform. But anything else sitting on the prem is really not the vision of where we're taking the platform. It's more about multi-cloud.
Nice. Of the three tactics that you actually covered during this conversation, which one do we try first? How do we get started? What's your recommendation?
I just think, basic visualization of what you have running versus spreadsheets. One thing to note when you see any of the tools, right? It's not just Hyperg Glance. I think most of them do this, right? You're many times looking at 3, 6, 12 months of historical invoicing data, right? The billing data, right? That in large interstate, Fortune 500, Defense Department kind of context where Hyperg Glance is sold and used, you're talking on the order of many times, on the order of millions of lines of invoicing over time. Right? If you said 12 months of historical, right? I mean, to rationalize that in pivot tables on a spreadsheet, good luck with that.
It's my nightmare.
So we started with the business value first with unit economics by design, right? But really, the first step of getting there is just fundamental understanding of your cloud estate at an inventory level, right? And looking at where the low-hanging fruit is, and then evolving the maturity of your FinOps model into what we're suggesting around unit economics.
So, Steve, I know I asked a question, and Robin said, actually, you know what, Castano, I want to ask this to you because you've deployed it, you utilize the platform. How soon after implementing Hyperg Glance do you realize savings or can view the metrics?
Honestly, it's real quick. The deployment is super easy. One thing that we didn't highlight here is that, I saw as people were asking about other clouds, one of the things that's important to know about Hyperg Glance in particular is it's not a SaaS product. It runs inside your network environment. So it's right there. It's not, like I said, installing agents and relaying things back. And, if you paid for real-time data transfer on that, it would be massive. The whole idea is this is an AMI that's running. It's sitting in your environment. So you deploy it, and an hour later, data is coming in. It'll maybe take a little while to build up trends and do anomaly detection. Obviously, there needs to be a baseline there. That's just physics. Time exists. We have to wait for a trend. But the big stuff, cleaning out the junk, finding unattached resources, orphaned resources, environments that are sitting with nobody logging into them, right-sizing recommendations, that history of performance and utilization, that's all in the cloud. So as soon as Hyperg Glance connects it, ingests the data, runs it through the math, and puts it on your screen, it's a couple hours later. And you can be clicking the button to buy RIs, to convert instances, to delete unattached EBS volumes, a lot of the things we showed you. It's fast. Get it today. You'll save money at the end of this month. It's that fast.
I love the honesty from you, Steve, about it. Your whole, character and everything speaks to the value of it and your passion behind it. I'm going to end with a last question. Now, everybody, I know I forgot to do the raffle for the last one, so we're going to do 2 raffles this time. We're going to do, right before I bring Rory on, we'll do a raffle. Then I'll bring Rory on, do some magic, and then we'll do another raffle because I got to catch up things. I'm going to ask this last question to you. Steve Robinson, for somebody to get started, do you recommend implementing Hyperg Glance in the beginning of their FinOps journey or midway forward? What's the best and optimal time for people to get the most out of it?
Well, I think anyone on this panel would suggest that the culture shift matters, right? So before you start throwing a tool at it, I'm a vendor, and I'm saying, have that conversation first, right? How are we going to structure things? What's the state of reporting today? I mean, even if it's spreadsheet driven, right, or it's native council driven, what do we have today? And where do we want to go, starting with customers, starting with business metrics, right? Once you gap that and understand that, then you open yourself up to, okay, what platforms out there are going to help bridge this channel and this cultural shift around continuous optimization and design into our cloud estate, right? We think we have a good product. There's good products out there, but the point is you got to start with the organization and the culture. Then you get into tool selection, platform selection.
I like that approach. All right, it's time to do our raffle. So let's get our raffle onto the screen. Now, since I forgot the last time, we're going to do 3 $10 ones. Now, remember, if you're in the US, I'll ship these directly to you because I've got a bunch of them sitting on my desk. Go ahead, let's click the spin. And as that's going, and by the way, I suck at names. So if I butcher your name, I really apologize. But we'll get it going, or I'll try to get it. So let's see. Dun, 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 dun. There should always be some Jeopardy music. And did it go? Tyler Long, look, I can say it. Congratulations. We will get this to you. We'll contact you through email. We'll send this off. Now, don't go anywhere, guys, because it's now time to bring Rory back on, and we're going to be doing some awesome magic. Well, he's going to be doing it, and I'm just going to be wild because I got no skill set whatsoever. Let's get Rory back onto the stage. All right, Rory, it's all you.
How are you?
Hey, Rory.
All right. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. So last time we did a little game called The Problem. This time we're going to do a new game, and it's actually kind of a famous game, but it's done differently. So which one of you want to participate first?
Go, Steve.
You got it out.
You're
first.
up.
All right, I'm up.
Okay. Do you have a phone?
I do.
Okay, great. The name of the game is called Phone a Friend. So I want you to think of a friend that's going to text you back within the next 3 minutes.
Okay.
You got one?
Yep.
Okay. What I want you to do is I want you to text that friend and say, hey, this is important. Please text me the name of a playing card. Okay?
Got it.
Now, while you do, I'm going to do another game. John, with you or with
No,
you?
do it with Robinson. I'm just the guy that's being amazed at this.
So Robinson, here's why we're playing Phone a Friend. Number one, we want to find out if your buddy has any friends, which I personally think he does. But number two, what I'm going to do is we're going to try and create like a mental link and do this game together. Now I have a playing card here, okay, and I have a box of cards here. Okay, so imagine for a second an invisible box of cards. If I were to take some of the cards out of the box, do you want me to take the pictures out or the numbers?
Numbers.
Okay, so I take the numbers out, okay? And now I'm looking at the pictures, and I realize there's only men and women. And I take some of the cards and I throw them up in the air. Am I throwing the men up in the air or the women up in the air?
Let's throw the men up.
Okay? So the men go up in the air, and you watch them hit the floor. And now you have the women in your hand, like this. And you take a lighter out, and you light the lighter, and it has a blue flame. So you take that lighter, and you set some of the cards on fire. Are you setting the red cards on fire, or are you setting the black cards on fire?
Red.
Okay, so you set the red cards on fire, and you watch them burn. Now you're holding 2 cards. You're going to drop one to the floor, and you're going to hand one to me. Are you going to hand me the Queen of Spades or the Queen of Clubs?
Spades.
Spades. Are you sure?
Queen of Spades.
Are you sure you don't want to change? You could maybe change to the Queen of Clubs because this is a 50-50 at this point, and it's like the hand slamming down, and I don't want you to later go, oh my God, I wish it was the club. I should have went with the club.
Well, I don't know if you're trying to coerce me or help me. I guess I'll go with exactly. We'll go with the clubs then, I guess.
Are you sure? Because I don't want you to get
Absolutely sure. I'm 100% sure.
the spade, but he coerced me into going with the club. But I went with the club. So last chance. Which one are you going with?
Club.
Yes. There is the club.
Wow.
That's
I love it.
you really wanted to go with the spade. But here's why I'm having you phone a friend. Because everything I'm doing is designed to influence how you think. Oh, is that your friend?
Yeah.
Let's pick the phone up now. Pick the phone up, quick.
No, I just hit mute, but I got it. She went with the 2 of clubs.
Okay, does that seem like a pretty fair choice at this point?
I mean, yeah. It's surprising though. She's got a tattoo of an ace of spades.
And there's literally no way. We've never even met before, have we?
No, absolutely
I
not.
haven't met your friend.
Nope.
And before the show, I did some magic for John. And John, what card did we use?
The 2 of clubs.
Oh, come on.
No lie, I had it on the bottom. You can ask Marit and everybody else on here. I had the 2 of club on the bottom of my deck, and it was, yeah.
Now here's interesting. Here's what's interesting. I had in this box 1 card. Now, if this is the 2 of clubs, it's not, because look, it's the ace of spades, which is what she tattooed on. But look, inside of the pack, there was 1 card reversed.
That's wild.
That card, my friend.
Oh, I love that. Oh,
That's pretty impressive.
yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Now,
If anyone's interested, I was like, I'll post a screenshot of that on LinkedIn just to show I really sent that text message and really got back 2 of clubs.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
that is awesome. Oh my God, Rory, I love not knowing anything about this going in. That was pretty good, guys. This is about, don't go anywhere, because now we have to do the raffle, the official raffle of some AirPods. Everybody stay on. I know everybody's watching. Come on. You're going to win some AirPods. Time to bring up the raffle machine. Dun, 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 dun. As we move some things around. Oh, wait, I'm going to bring Rory back on.
Okay.
There we go. All right. We got to keep you on here. Okay, hold on. And let's spin it. Hopefully I get the name right. If I get the name wrong or I can't pronounce it, Rory, it's all up to you.
Sounds good.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay, this is up to you, Rory.
Okay, let's go. Hyperg Glance.
Yeah, congratulations. Don't worry, we'll reach out to you. If you are not in the US, we'll get you a gift card so you can get your own AirPods. Or if you happen to be over here in the States and local, we can meet up or whatever, the next event. We'll get you one of these. Congratulations. Steve Robinson, Steve Cassano, thank you so much. I love actually talking about, not only FinOps and Starting Savvy and all the essentials that are around it, but talking about how you solve a unique problem around it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
All right, Rory.
Plan.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. And now we're going to go on to our next amazing participating sponsor, guest, and a good friend of mine. Let's roll things over on understanding and controlling your cloud backup costs with drum roll as we bring on Sam. Let's bring him onto the thing. Mr. Sam, how are you?
I'm doing great, John. How are you doing, man?
Sam, I got to ask you, what do you think of everything that's happening so far?
The magic's blowing my mind. I'm loving these presentations from vendors, picking up a lot of stuff as well and drawing the parallels between what's going on in their world. I saw some great stuff in the story lane from Hyperg Glance and Better Than Services in terms of snapshots, and that's going to definitely come up in this conversation.
What? We're going to talk about backups and snapshots and what? Is that our conversation today?
I think it might be. I live and breathe in the world of backup. I know it's not fun. I know it's not sexy, but I do know that it has serious implications when it comes to cost And, really just looking forward to what Veeam is seeing in terms of public cloud backup costs. And then also just some general tips on how to help you guys control them.
So our topic today is understanding and controlling your cloud backup costs. And before we get to that, I got to thank everybody for all the comments, the thumbs up, everything that's happened. I'd give you a thumbs up, but my Mac seems to want to do my actionable items. Actually, you know what, Sam, we're going to do what? There we go. That's perfect. Sam and I get a kick out of this during our events and doing it because it brings a unique perspective. But don't forget, drop some questions into the chat you have for our guests. We'll add them to the conversation. We'll get them onto the screen. I'll ask Sam during it live. So Sam, let's talk about it. Cloud backup cost. Now, it's not the most, catchy thing that everybody's thinking, but it's very valuable in understanding not only implementing cloud FinOps from the beginning, but where a lot of your costs could come from.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to put my Merit hat on, and first I'm going to say, I love Excel. And secondly, I'm going to use a Merit
Merit's smiling, by the way. She's still around and she's loving this.
I can't see. But also,
wait. Hold that thought 1 second. I'd bring her on. No, I'm just kidding. All right, but go ahead.
Yeah, also use an analogy, right? And kind of liken backup to, let's just say insurance, right? It's not one of those things that gets you excited. It's not one of those things that you want to visit commonly. But when you get in a bad situation, boy, are you glad that you've got a good solution. And kind of when you're deciding your insurance, right, you're kind of looking at the plan. Let's liken that to our service level objectives, but then you're also looking at the cost. Like, is that going to stay within my budget? And that's really how I think about backup, particularly when we move to public cloud, where we're paying for every ounce of compute, storage, network that we consume. How can we do this in a very efficient manner that is not only going to help reduce my cloud bill, but also just like my resourcing behind it, and free up folks to be a lot more innovative and focus on other things.
One of the biggest things that I see with backups, and when it was on-prem, nobody really was concerned about how much storage we was using. They would just retain the data for years on end. They didn't have a cycle to remove it. But when you come to the cloud environment, like you mentioned, you're paying for every ounce of storage, every ounce of data and communication. The other thing that I want to note is the networking charges, right? Egress, ingress. You have to worry about, like, everything that goes outside of it is going to cost you a dollar amount. And there are some cases now, some hyperscalers have removed that, but it still needs to be considered when you're implementing a policy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we kind of look at least some folks' first foray into the public cloud, which is just utilizing object storage as a backup target for their on-premises workloads, if you ever have to perform a restore, there's always going to be an egress charge, right? You're taking data out of the cloud. Now that we're kind of moving more and more into having production workloads running on public cloud infrastructure, public cloud platforms, that egress challenge, I would say, is going away. But now we're getting into this more purposeful use of multi-cloud, and we've seen that come up a lot here, right? Multi-cloud, I think, initially was almost like a mistake, right? We had, business unit or application team A wanting to run their application on AWS, and B wanting to do it on Microsoft Azure, and C on Google Cloud. It's now a much, much more deliberate choice, right? All around different services that are available, the regions that are in play, making sure that workload is as close to the end user as possible, but then also from a cost angle as well, right? I see customers pitching these public cloud hyperscalers against each other in order to keep their bill much lower. And as part of that, we do also see cross-cloud backup and recovery, right? So I've got my AWS instances, I'm backing that up to Azure, vice versa. And now we have to start thinking about the egress fees there as well. But it's not just about egress, it's also about regional traffic, right? Different workloads call for different degrees of protection, and always advocate for right sizing the protection based on mission criticality and so forth. But, a highly mission critical workload is going to benefit from something like a cross-region backup going from US East 1 to US West. That's going to incur a cost. Is that a cost that we can justify and substantiate for that specific workload, or is it not needed?
Sam, when we talk about backups and how it relates to FinOps, when does this come into play? When I think about backups, I'm thinking about the application design, and a lot of times it's the afterthought, right? Backups are like, okay, I implemented this and we push it to production. Oh crap, we have to back it up. But when you implement or trying to implement FinOps, when does backups become a consideration along with the cost?
So it's a good question. In practice, we see it vary. Oftentimes, I see backup as one of the hurdles to hosting an application in a specific way. If the existing backup vendor doesn't support it in that design, let's say a cloud native Kubernetes managed framework, then oftentimes they won't even choose to go that route, or they'll just choose to implement another tool to back it up. So I would say right at the get-go is when it needs to start being thought about. But you're absolutely right. Backup is not the forefront of every architect or engineer's mind. Absolutely, do they want to architect for high availability, resiliency, being able to overcome any sort of outage, data loss, security incident? But it's just not the first thing that they think about. And I think what we see a lot of times is the application gets into production and they just rely on snapshots and snapshots alone. And that's where we start to deal with sprawl, right? Snapshots live on the most expensive storage available in the public cloud, right? So going back to the Hyperg Glance presentation, they had a line item for EBS snapshots. I think it was orphaned EBS snapshots. Snapshot sprawl is real. And if you don't manage it correctly, it gets very, very expensive very quickly. I would say at least once a month, I'm dealing with a customer that is spending hundreds of thousands a month just on snapshots. So there's got to be a better way to do this. And this is kind of where you start to think about true backup, right? Going beyond just a snapshot-based approach. And certainly where Veeam can help, I don't want this to be a vendor pitch. I'd just rather it be best practices, but Veeam can take an image-based backup from that snapshot and start to tier that on much, much more cost-effective storage options. So sounds like a heavy AWS crowd. So let's keep going with the AWS route. Let's start putting on different tiers of S3. So all of a sudden, I'm dealing with 2.3 cents per gig per month instead of 5. And I can go down all the way down to deep archive for that long-term retention where backups have to be retained for 5-10 years, sometimes even indefinitely for compliance reasons. I can start to be a lot more cost effective because the likelihood of me needing to recover from something that's 3 years old is very small. I can make that trade-off when it comes to the performance and time that it takes to restore from a backup that's 3 years old and take the fractions of a cent per gig per month. The other benefit that a true backup can bring is you can start to fold deduplication and compression in, right? So you can start to sometimes half the size of the backup. So I'd say think about it
about some of the beginning. Oh, sorry about that. I thought you stopped there. You might have cut out there. I didn't mean to cut you off.
That was my bad. I was just saying, irrespective, just think about it quick and early and avoid that bill shock.
Well, thinking about it quick and early, and you were talking about the process with AWS and taking it from EBS, taking an image, rolling it off to S3, the deduplication process, and most of you are not aware, is like data sometimes lives, it's the same exact data, the same exact stuff living in two different places, and looking at it, comparing them, and only saving one bits of the data. Sam, what are you seeing in the industry when it comes to protecting the cloud infrastructure and their platforms?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can actually cut to some slides that I brought in.
Yeah.
If you want to bring that up on the screen, and I'll go full screen so it's easy for everyone to see. This isn't even Veeam research. This is actually from Flexera's State of the Cloud 2023 report. And really the interesting thing that came out this year is that managing cloud spend topped organizations' cloud challenges, even more so than security. Whether you're, the largest of enterprises down to, the smallest of medium businesses, Joe's Bait and Tackle Shop just down the street, everyone is struggling with cloud spend. And I think, there are a number of reasons behind that. I'm going to say the dreaded 5-letter word, COVID, right? When COVID first struck, we saw a huge uptick in migrations to the cloud, right? We spoke about lift and shift earlier on, taking a monolithic 3-tiered application that's running on 3 different virtual machines on premises and just doing it exactly the same way in AWS on EC2. Does it work? Absolutely. Is it the most efficient utilization of those resources? No, it's not. We can start to look at different levels of maturity, again, something that was discussed earlier on, and start to decouple those services. And instead of, let's say, hosting a database on an EC2 instance, going for platform as a service, whether that's RDS, DynamoDB, the list goes on. And then truly decoupling and leveraging microservices, serverless, even down to like Kubernetes as well, going truly cloud native. That's ultimately going to help me be a lot more cost effective in the public cloud. But again, managing that cloud spend has a big implications on, or backup has big implications on managing cloud spend as well. We're just dealing with copies of data. And again, it's not something that everyone wants to do, but we absolutely have to do it. And boy, are we glad that we've done it when we face some sort of security event, or there's been an outage, or someone's deleted, I don't know, a file share that the CEO is dependent on. So again, just being much, much more cost effective or much, much more thoughtful about how we do backup in the cloud is ultimately going to help us bring that spend down. So we're not wasting budgets on just data protection. We can free up those budgets to be more innovative.
I find it interesting that managing cloud spend, well, actually, I'm not surprised, to be honest with you, that it's one of the top challenges that organizations are facing or concerned about. And then there's security, and you would think security would be number one, but cloud spend is getting out of hand because, like you mentioned, everybody went to the cloud fast and furious during a couple of years ago, and now they're trying to wrangle that back in. But number 3 on the list is lack of resources and expertise. And I think that goes to our conversation of talking about not only implementing cloud FinOps, implementing backups, understanding your cloud environments and how to do things. Why do you think that cloud spend has gotten so out of hand, besides obviously getting there as quick as possible?
I'm going to kind of dovetail off on that lack of resources and expertise piece, John, because the backup guy, the one that's responsible for backing up, traditionally lives in an on-premises infrastructure environment, and they've seen this acceleration towards the cloud, and it's an area that they just don't understand. And on the flip side of that, you've got your cloud architects, engineers, admins that are building, managing, running cloud infrastructure that don't understand backup. And Marit did speak a lot about communication. And I think being able to broker that connection between those two teams, help the backup admin that's used to managing servers and storage on-prem understand the cloud world and how things work in the cloud, and vice versa, I think is just ultimately going to be in the best interest of the team. And again, Veeam is one of those companies that can help broker and facilitate that communication through backup, right? It's not just for AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. We support any number of services in a hybrid cloud environment, whether they're physical or virtualized on premises, containerized applications managed by Kubernetes, again, on-prem or any one of the hyperscalers, software as a service. Veeam can help an organization transition between these different cloud maturities and continue that connection between the traditional IT admin, backup admin, and DevOps, DevSecOps, platform ops, cloud engineers, cloud architects.
One of the things that I've highlighted throughout this entire event is, Erik had talked about it, communication with your engineering. Marit talked about it in her opening remarks. Steve and Steve were talking about it in the communication aspect of it, and you're touching on the communication. And I think one of the things that needs to note is that when you bring finance, engineering, and business together, finance is worried obviously about the cost. The business is thinking about their application needs to be up all the time, and I need to have it. And what is the value of backing up that I need to have and retain these backups for 30 days, 90 days, a year, whatever you need, needs to be communicated to the engineering team so they can implement the right policies from the start.
Yeah, policies and tagging. So again, Hyperg Glance and BTS discuss the importance of a very, very strong tagging culture, and the same goes for backups. if I'm a cloud architect or admin, I don't want to be managing or babysitting backups, 8-9 hours a day. I just want something that I can set, forget, get on with my day, and know that it's going to help me when I need it, a restore. But policies and tagging are huge, and I always advocate for it. No application is built the same. No application has the same degree of criticality. Therefore, the data protection standards for that, the service level objectives, recovery time objective, recovery point objective varies. And instead of manually creating jobs for each and every single application or instance that I have, I can just create a set of policies that looks for tags on specific, again, EC2 instances, RDS, EFS, EKS, and just let that run in the background. And as new services come online, provided that they're appropriately tagged, they're just going to be automatically pulled into that policy without anyone having to do anything. And if you have the right tagging cultures and tags and policies set up, you're going to have the right degree of data protection applied to it. That's going to help you ensure that not only you're not going to overspend, but you're also falling in line with other like data governance and compliance regulations.
Well, Sam, you actually talked about the policies, and Abhishek put a question in there. Are there policies which can be implemented for backups, and which policies?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we see, I'm going to distill this down to something somewhat basic in the interest of time, but organization A chooses to implement a gold policy, a silver policy, and a bronze policy. And the gold tier has the most frequent snapshots being taken. Snapshots are retained for longer. They're then backed up onto object storage, and those are retained for a longer period of time. The silver policy maybe has a snapshot taken every 4 hours, and they only live as a snapshot for a week, and then they're tiered off onto object storage. And then the bronze policy, maybe we only take a daily snapshot, and it's tiered off to object storage and maybe only retained for 3 months. The policies are completely customizable. You could create hundreds of different policies if you want. It's really about what are the service level objectives that you need to build out, what tags are you going to associate to that, and then just communicating it out to the organization that when they bring an EC2 instance online for a mission critical application that has personally identifiable information on it, you tag it with a gold tag, let's say, and that's automatically pulled into the policy and had the right degree of data protection associated to it, and therefore the right amount of spend.
Well, Sam, actually, there's so many questions coming in. I'm going to jump on another one. Anthony, he's asking, do these policies need to be set manually, or can they be implemented as policy as a code, considering large enterprise infrastructure?
So we don't do policy as a code right now. I can absolutely feed that back because I love the idea, but policies are created manually right now. Yes.
Well, the Veeam console and creating a lot of the policies are very easy and straightforward. I've actually implemented it a number of times. Sam and I worked together in the past, and just kind of, it's very easy to use. Sam, here's another question, and it kind of goes off, kind of talking about those optimizations and, taking some of those sacrifices. What are some of the top tips you can share about optimizing costs without sacrificing protection?
Yeah, great question. I think that we've touched on a lot of it. First off, like looking how often you're going to take a snapshot and how long you're going to store that snapshot for. As data ages, the likelihood of you needing to recover from it diminishes. So do we need that to live as a snapshot for months and months, sometimes years and years? Because the benefit of the snapshot is that it is very, very quick to recover from. We can get those near zero RTOs, but again, as it ages, what's the likelihood of needing to recover from it and recover from it that quickly? It's small. So again, look at all of the different storage options that you have available to you and make sure that you're utilizing storage that is appropriate to the age of the backup, the likelihood of recovery, and what your budgets allow for. I'm actually going to skip forward to that part of the slide because we've got, balancing storage cost and performance. Other components is looking at compute. So like the Hyperg Glance guys, we aren't software as a service, right? This is an army that's deployed within AWS or a virtual machine that's deployed within Azure. If you choose to do that there, that's ultimately going to live on an EC2 instance, and looking at all the different types of compute that is associated with data protection, right? So there's the actual machine that is running the appliance itself, we're going to have ultimately, very sustained, very predictable patterns of usage there. So something like a reserved instance of running the actual appliance itself is going to be the best bet. But there are other pieces of compute that are involved with backup, right? We spoke about taking an image-based backup from a snapshot. That's going to take compute. The way Veeam does that is that we will spin up a dynamic instance at that point in time to perform that job and then automatically spin it down for you. Same goes for things like restore, whether that's a full restore from a backup, whether it's a file level restore. There's a degree of compute involved there. So instead of having compute instances just running idle, waiting to take a task on, we will automatically spin them up, perform the job, and then terminate them. And again, that's going to help keep the bill low. I'm just going to keep going on a roll here.
Go for it, man.
Yeah, we spoke about the transfer fees, right? And understanding, like, again, degree of protection and where fees are experienced, right? If we move data within a region, we don't have to pay for those fees. If we're moving them from one region to another, we absolutely do so. Does that application need that degree of protection? And then, of course, again, egress, right? Am I taking this out of cloud, putting it to another cloud? Am I putting it back on premises? What are the cost implications there? And understanding them, because backup isn't just a storage line item. It's got the compute, it's got the networking, and yes, it does absolutely have the storage piece. Kind of spoke about policies and tagging already, but just automate as much as you can, right? Again, if I'm an architect or an engineer, I do not want to be spending 8-9 hours a day babysitting backup. I want to go off and do much, much more fun things. So automating as much as I possibly can is going to, again, help keep costs low. It's going to help free up my resources. It's going to help me meet compliance. So policies and automation are absolutely your friend.
Wait, Sam, can I jump in there? Because
Sure.
there, the data lifecycle management, talk to me more about that, because when I think of data lifecycle management, AWS has DLM, and the only way you can implement it is you have successful tagging implemented, and then you put some policies behind it. So all three come in. Is it data lifecycle management around AWS, or is it within Veeam? And how does that work? How does that look?
So I think that it absolutely applies to anything and everything, but we're going to put it through the backup lens as well. Maybe it would have been better to put backup lifecycle management as this bullet point. But again, it kind of comes down to that tiering, right? Snapshots. How long does it need to live as a snapshot? And automatically deleting that snapshot when it's no longer needed, and storing the backup on the right type of object storage, whether it's infrequent access or S3 Glacier Deep Archive. Like, just making sure that as that backup ages, and the likelihood of needing to recover from it diminishes, moving it onto colder and colder object storage to, again, still be within compliance and retention requirements, but not blowing up our budgets on something that might never be needed, and freeing up those budgets to spend on other more innovative things.
Well, I like number 5. Number 5 kind of goes into talking about FinOps and really predicting and forecasting your cloud costs, but your actual spend that's going to be happening within your backups. Can you talk to me more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we build this directly into the policy wizard. So we spoke about the creation of policies earlier. Before you commit that policy into action, Veeam utilizes list pricing from AWS for API calls, compute, storage, networking, and the parameters that you've set within that policy and the instances that it's designed to protect to actually forecast your monthly spend. So before you even commit to it, it's going to tell you this policy is going to cost you, let's just say, $100 a month. And $5 a month of that is API, 25 of it is storage, whatever it might be. And that's one thing that I think really helps folks is being more proactive than reactive. So if you understand how much you're going to be spending before you commit to it, you're going to understand already if you're exceeding budgets that are assigned for data protection, if you're within those budgets, and it just helps avoid that bill shock that, again, I'm speaking to so many organizations that are spending tens, sometimes hundreds of thousands a month on snapshots. there is a better way to do it. There is a way to, sorry, John, I'm going to steal your term, have your cake and eat it, right? Meet your service level
That's
objective.
not mine. That was Matt's, and that was awesome. But I
Yeah.
like it that you're using it.
And it's also come up, in previous conversations, is around negotiations, right? All the major public cloud providers have MAC agreements or EDPs. It's not called an EDP anymore. It's
No, they changed it. They changed it. I'm sure Marit's still around. Marit, if you can write in the chat, like, do you still know, what is the new EDP term that's I learned it at reInvent that they just changed it, but I haven't actually talked about it anymore. Somebody definitely knows it, but negotiating your terms, your discounts, but there's a caveat there because you have to commit to it. There it is, private pricing agreement, aka PPA.
Love it.
All right.
Always keeping us on our toes with new acronyms.
Thank you, Marit, so much. I appreciate it. But there's a caveat to negotiating it because you're committing to future spend, how much you're going to spend in the cloud environment to get an X amount of discount on all the services you're going to utilize. So I think that's really key.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, with backups, it can be relatively predictable. We do also have tools out there that help with things like capacity planning, so you can understand, this is how big my production environment is. This is kind of like my annual growth factor and what my daily change rate is, and kind of forecast how much storage and compute that is going to consume over the course of 12 months. So you're not signing up to a MAC or PPA that is too sizable. But again, I think it's more so around just freeing up budgets to spend on other more innovative things that is ultimately going to deliver more value to customers and enable your business to be more successful and competitive in market.
Sam, we got a couple minutes for, yes, stick right there. Marit actually noted on something that there's a minimum monthly spend and growth rate. So there's some considerations on number 5 that Sam was highlighting, not only your SLOs, but negotiating some of this stuff to take into consideration on what you're going to be doing and achieving. Sam, I'm going to let you continue because then I got another special question for you.
All right, yeah, go for it. I'll just kind of cover these off quickly. Just a few proof points out there of existing users using Veeam within their cloud environments. I've kind of gone for mid-sized organization on the left, Ciox Health, or in a multi-cloud environment, and you can kind of see exactly how Veeam can help control costs. So they've got immutable backups, 500 terabytes of data daily, and they're spending less than $20,000 a month, and that includes. Essentially, their environment looks like this. They have a co-location, an AWS environment, and an Azure environment. The co-location backs up to AWS. AWS backs up to Azure, and Azure backs up to AWS. So all the different production services are basically backing up to a completely different location. So not only are they backing up a sizable amount of data, but there's also egress fees associated with that. Actually, they avoid egress fees by using things like express routes and direct connect. So it's more treated like cross-regional traffic versus egress. Top tip there to help cut down costs if that's what you're doing. And then also licensing, $20,000 a month. HBC, one of the oldest organizations in North America, so they own like Saks Fifth Avenue, $1 million in one-time capex saving and $600,000 in recurring opex annually, just purely from again utilizing Veeam versus snapshots. And then small medium business, Best Friends Animal Society, $42,000 a year doesn't sound like a lot to a big organization, but a nonprofit, it absolutely is. And this is just a great example of how freeing up wasted spend on data protection can go into the purchase of, in this example, a new data lake for predictive analytics, ultimately driving better outcomes for animals, but they still have their data protection. So, just a couple of examples there. There's a ton of case studies on the Veeam website if you'd like to read more, as well as a lot more documentation on learning about just what Veeam is doing, not just in the public cloud, but across a hybrid and multi-cloud environment.
Well, Sam, my last question for you, and this one's actually a personal question, as in, I'm thinking about a lot, obviously, with FinOps and educating those on how to get started. What would you recommend to anybody trying to implement not only FinOps and taking into consideration, like, when does backups come to mind when they're looking at implementing the FinOps culture?
Again, my recommendation is just going to be as soon as possible. There's a lot of resources and tooling out there, both available directly from the cloud providers themselves to help you forecast that spend, as well as from third-party vendors, some of them data protection specific, like Veeam. We do have a number of free different options out there as well for you to kind of implement in your environment and just use it as a forecasting tool initially if you would like. But I would say think about it at first, because bill shock is real. Relying on snapshots alone is incredibly expensive. And it's just something that, again, backup is like insurance. We know that we have to do it. Think about it early, build out the right type of policies and the right type of protection, and avoid having that bill shock in the first place.
Backup is like insurance. I like that. You hope that you don't need it, but it's there to give you a peace of mind.
Yep. And boy, are you glad that you have it when you need it.
Exactly. How many times I remember this as an admin, that you had to restore something and you were just hoping that backups were successful and the data's there, because it might not have been tested. It might not have been validated, or you've had to trim some space because you ran out of storage somewhere.
Sorry, was that a question? You cut out a bit. So was it a question about testing backups?
I like that, where he's actually, that's a good thing about testing backups. Let's ask that question. How important is it to test your backups when you're implementing it not only in cloud, on-prem, multi-cloud?
Not important at all. Just go through the real world exercise the first time it happens and everything will be fantastic. No, yeah, practice, right? Make sure that the backup data is good and recoverable. Again, not only from a technological perspective, but also from a muscle memory. Like, you don't want to be undergoing some sort of cybersecurity incident where everyone's going crazy, the adrenaline's running, and the first time that you're performing a restore is in a real world scenario. Practice, test. And ultimately, it's going to deliver the best outcome for you guys.
I like that. All right, Sam, stay there. We got to bring Rory back on. We got to do some more magic. Now, everybody, remember this, right after Rory, we're doing the raffle. And then after our next guest, what's happening is we're doing the Oculus raffle. I'm going to bring everybody that's still around back onto the show for one final magic as we kind of wrap things up. But this time it's for Rory. Let's bring him back onto the screen. Rory, how are you?
I'm awesome. Thanks, John. Hey, Sam.
What's going on, Rory? How are you going to blow my mind?
All right. Well, it's funny you were talking about snapshots and memory, because we're going to play a game with your memory.
I'm so glad that my wife isn't in earshot, because she'll tell you I'll forget something in 5 seconds.
Yes. And I have a backup if it goes wrong. So
great.
Human beings can memorize 3 to 9 pieces of information within 10 seconds. Okay, so to make it easy for you, Sam, I brought a little envelope and I wrote 5 words on it. I'm going to give you 10 seconds to memorize the 5 words. Ready?
Screenshotting cheating?
Go. Yes, that's cheating. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, Sam, did you memorize the 5 words? Don't look.
Yes.
You did. What were the 5 words?
I'll select hey, bar, rock.
Cool. Sound good? Okay. Now I'm going to distract you and I'm going to make you forget one of those words. Okay? And this is how we're going to do it. I have a list of celebrities here. And let's see if you can get that.
Back up just a little, right? Put it in front of your face, because I think it's there we go. Actually, perfect.
List of celebrities, yes?
Okay.
Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to name a number between, say, 1 and 100, because there's 100 celebrities there.
Okay. You want me to say it out loud now?
Loud.
27.
Okay. What would make you choose 27?
It's the age I would like to be again.
Very nice. So let's do this. In the meantime, do you remember the 5 words?
Yes, I'll select hey, bar, rock.
Okay. So, start to think. We're going to play another game to try to confuse you. Let me do this again so you can see. Can you see it? Let's go down to number 27. See 27 there?
Yep.
Okay. Who is that?
Barack Obama.
Okay. Remember that person as well.
Okay.
So now you have 6 pieces of information in your head.
Yep.
And now I'm going to give you one more piece of information, and this is called Spy the Lie. So this is the way we're going to do it. Are you ready? Anytime you want, you say stop.
Stop.
Or don't. Okay. But you're going to delay in the camera. Let's do it again. You ready? Set. Go.
Stop.
Can you see the card?
Yep.
Okay. We'll put that away. So actually, I'll just get rid of it like this. Okay. So there's no way I can know what the card is. Do you agree?
Sure.
Now you have 7 pieces of information in your head. So we've gone from 5 to 6 to 7. And we're talking about memory and we're talking about backup. So I said that my job is to confuse you and try and steal one of those words out of your head without you remembering. Do you remember when I said that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so you're tracking with me. You haven't forgot anything yet.
I hope not.
What you're going to do, we're going to play a game called Spy the Lie, and you're going to completely lie to me about what your card is. I'm going to try and influence you and tell you what your card is. I'm ready when you are.
10 of diamonds.
10 of diamonds. Now, if you notice, and you can play this back, if you watch Sam's body language, right when he said 10 of diamonds, he closed his eyes. That's what people do when they don't want to see the information. So next time you do that, Sam, you just open. Okay? So if you told me it's a diamond, that means that it's a heart. If you told me that it's an even card, that means that it's an odd card. If you told me, Sam, why did you choose the 10 of diamonds?
It's just random.
Okay, but let me tell you why you chose the 10 of diamonds. You see, this whole thing has nothing to do with memory. It has nothing to do with backup. It has to do with implanting thoughts into your mind. See, you could have chosen any card, and I told you that people can remember between 3 and 9 pieces of information. But isn't it weird that on the 7th piece of information, you would choose the 7 of hearts?
Damn.
That's kind of weird, yes?
Yes.
But from the very beginning, when I told you that it was about memory, you remember those 5 words. What were they?
I'll select Hey Barack.
I'll select a Barack. Oh, but we're talking about
7.
So I will store this right here, and it's about putting something in your mind. You see that green envelope over there? Before we ever started, I got a picture of Barack Obama. Would you freak out if I was able to put that in your mind?
Yes.
Check it out. A picture of Barack Obama as a baby. I'm just kidding. Last time I did this last week, someone said Brad Pitt. I had him covered. I didn't get a picture of Barack Obama. I did get an autograph, though. But wait a second. Remember I said that there was backup in storage. See, you always have to have a backup. Oh, so I got a picture of me and Barack. But if you're thinking I had another picture, hold on. Yes, I do have another picture. That was another picture. Get this in focus. Actually, there we go. Actually, all these were pictures of me and Barack and Barack and Barack and Barack. And Barack.
It's never ending.
You've got a snapshot sprawl problem, Rory.
I
You
did.
gotta get that out.
Help me. We're getting that cold.
Oh,
Awesome.
Very good. That was
Sam,
great.
I love the snapshot sprawl comment. That was good. Awesome stuff,
Try to be
Rory.
good for something.
Oh, I forgot to tell you. Wait, what was the number? What was the number that you chose?
27.
27. Look, I forgot to do this. Look, in my pocket, I keep some change.
Oh.
So I'm a foreigner. I have no idea what the denominations of these coins are.
That's a quarter. It's 25. That's a penny, and I dropped one. So awesome. Thanks, Sam.
Oh.
Thank you very much, Rory.
Oh, don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere yet. First of all, Rory, I don't think I can smile anymore. Man, my cheeks are hurting. That's freaking awesome. Okay. First of all, Rory, that was awesome. That was definitely good. I love that. All the parts that lead up to it. And I like how you tied in some backups there just for Sam in the conversation. We got to get to the raffle because you know what? It's time to raffle off some another AirPods. And when you think I don't have enough AirPods, I've got AirPods. I've got backups to my backups of AirPods. Just saying.
And I guess if the name goes wrong, you're going to make me say the name.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, it makes me feel better. All right, time to spin this wheel. Let's see who's going to do it. Dun, 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 dun. It's like a Jeopardy thing. I'll just sing it. I hope you guys like my little mascot. It's called Vincent Price, by the way. All right. Dun, 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 dun. All right. Margaret and Valteria, right? Valteria, Margaret, congratulations! AirPods, we'll contact you. We'll get these shipped out. Thank you so much. Sam, thank you so much for the conversation. As always, we talk about cloud backups and costs as it relates not only to FinOps and implementing it and worrying about it from the early stages, but don't worry. If you haven't done it, we can worry about it later and kind of implement it. Thank you so much, Sam. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. And if you can stick around, that's great. Rory, thank you so much. We got one more. By the way, Rory, after your last one, we're doing this.
That sounds great.
All right. We got
to for the last one. The last one's the best.
All right. Well, we're saving the best for last. It's now time to bring on our last person on it. And I'm not going to butcher anything, but you know what? I've talked to Matt before. So let's bring Matt onto the stage. Matt, how are you?
Hey, John, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Great, Matt. I'll give you a chance. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Cheers. Yeah. So, I mean, FinOps is a new-ish arena, right? But like most people, I've pivoted to it. And my pivot came from engineering. So I've got about a dozen years as an infrastructure engineer with a broad variety of experience from SaaS startup to large enterprise, from software companies to financial institutions. Like physical data center build-outs to cloud engineering and design. So I come with a practitioner experience, but and then a practical view on FinOps as well.
Everybody, first of all, I love our topic today. You and I were talking offline on how we created this. And, you know, we're talking about simultaneously usage and rate optimization. And I think the best part of that title is have your cake and eat it too. Any chance you brought some cake for us?
Does virtual cake count? There's probably like an emoji for this, right?
A virtual emoji for it. Let's talk about that a little bit more. First, I want to understand, you know, not only your usage and rate optimization. What are they?
Yeah. Do you mind if I throw up a visual aid?
Yeah. Go ahead. Can you share your screen?
I will.
And we'll get you added to the stream and then you'll be good to go.
Awesome. Great. So yeah, let's tee this up. I want to honor the concept that this is a 101. I'll sprinkle in a little 201, maybe some 301. But as you can see, we'll cover some basics. Like let's define usage versus rate optimization. Let's talk about commitment-based discounts and the challenges around purchasing or committing to them. We'll talk about the common wisdom. In other words, like the order in which you should pursue these savings opportunities. We'll talk about why usage changes in the first place, and then how we can solve some of these challenges with the introduction of automation.
All right, let's do it because I'm very curious and I've seen a lot. There was actually a couple of webinars and discussions that came out recently about usage and rate optimization. And I love the audience to understand when this comes into play during the implementation of their FinOps culture, starting out fresh, just kind of getting started.
Totally. So let's start at a high level. What's a cloud bill made of? There's sort of a chapter in the Cloud FinOps book about this, but what's a cloud bill? It's usage times rate. Super simple, right? So it's what you used and what you paid for each unit of the thing you used, right? This may vary by second, minute, hour. Some things are charged like, the first million are some rate, and then the next 10 million are some other rate. There's all sorts of different concepts here. But the point is, it's simply whatever you use times whatever rate you paid for that unit. So these are the two distinct areas of opportunity for optimization or cost reduction. So usage optimization is the engineering universe. This includes cost avoidance, like the best way to save money is to not use something in the first place, right? But more commonly, usage optimization or engineering optimization is used to refer to pursuing the most efficient use of the resources you choose to use. So this is topics like right sizing, auto scaling, or scaling horizontally, leveraging spot or preemptible compute instances, instant scheduling, stopping them outside of biz hours, cleaning up orphan resources, this type of like hygiene and engineering exercises, right? Conversely, rate optimization is the financial universe. So of course, what you use in an organization is going to change over time. So the idea of rate optimization is given the current state of your architecture, your cloud maturity, because this is like a spectrum and like we grow over time, right? The idea with rate optimization is wherever we are on that spectrum, let's pay the least for whatever it is we're using today. This will change over time, right? Like in simple terms, or by definition, lift and shift workloads have not been refactored or made cloud native. And they're probably just monolithic servers running around the clock. Over time, you're going to probably, or hopefully, refine that architecture to leverage microservices, containers, Spot, perhaps serverless, right? So, but the point is, it's about paying the least for each unit of a resource throughout this journey within your organization.
Matt, I want to jump in there and talk about the usage. When you looked at, I would say FinOps has come really well known in the last couple of years, but before that, it was, I'm going to say cost optimization. So cost optimization is really the cloud usage optimization and optimizing the resources that you are using in the least efficient manner.
Yeah, exactly right. So it's a sort of like, there's sort of two sides to the same coin, right? There's this rate optimization piece, which needs some idea of a forecast, but then as I'm saying, like the usage side of the engineering realities are changing over time. And so this kind of begins, or you can begin to see perhaps the rift or the tension between these two concepts, right? I want to just maybe draw this another way, and this is just another way to look at kind of the same concept. Again, engineering universe on the left and financial universe on the right. I just want to use this visual to mention one more interesting thing about how these sides of the same coin are distinct. And that is usage optimization has some degree of subjectivity. Now you may challenge that and say, no, wait a second, for a given app, there is some ideal architecture given the cloud provider that you're leveraging. You can say, no, there is a right way to do this objectively from an engineering standpoint. But in practicality, in the real world, you've got operations teams and app teams and engineering teams that have specific experiences. They're not encyclopedic, right? So if you've realized that, like, for example, Linux is a cheaper thing to use than Windows, that's awesome. But if you only have .NET developers and Windows experience in our operations team, then that isn't right for you. And so to some degree, usage optimization is subjective. Conversely, rate optimization is basically just the application of objective math, right? If there is something running at a public rate or an on-demand rate, you can cover that usage, we say, or commit to it and then receive a mathematically cheaper rate and then have a savings outcome, right? So they're very different in this like subjective versus objective reality as well.
I actually like the analogy you used with using Linux versus Windows. When you're looking at the rate optimization, it doesn't really matter what's running on those instances because you're utilizing the services themselves. So what's on the upper layer doesn't matter because the lower layer is being used, and it's all the same.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think it's really important to match, like it's one thing, it's kind of interesting to debate like which is the best tool or technology to use. And my answer as a former engineer is it's whatever your teams are comfortable with. Like don't invest in AWS if all of your engineers are good in Google Cloud. Like just use Google Cloud then. Like you'll it'll accelerate your journey, all right? Okay, so if we've kind of separated usage versus rate, let's talk about how we achieve rate optimization. We do this by leveraging what are referred to kind of academically as commitment-based discounts. You can read the definition. I've actually just borrowed it from the FinOps Foundation because why not just use the experts?
I like the attrition that you did at the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you gotta pay your respects. So the gist of a commitment-based discount is very simply, you're saying to your cloud service provider, I promise to run XYZ instance or some certain dollar amount for the next ABC amount of time, right? It's a commitment to use this or use this many dollars over this period of time. And for that promise or commitment, the cloud service provider applies a billing discount for the running hours or for the gigabytes or for the whatever it is that you accrue throughout that active term. The kind of yellow dash box area, this is really just to convey some of the concepts that you have when purchasing commitment-based discounts. And so you've got these kind of typical terms of 1 or 3 years. The 3-year gets a better discount, but it's a longer term, and you've got to have a much more clear view on your forecast, right? Other things are your coverage versus discount percentage. So you could cover very highly with a thing that performs poorly or gets a poor discount, or you can get the same result if you cover less with a higher performing discount instrument, right? Break even's an interesting point. This is a little bit more advanced potentially, but let's just say in simple terms, if you have a 1-year commitment discount that provides you a 30% discount, then you only need to run a workload that matches that commitment-based discount for 70%, the difference of 30 from 1 of the year, or 70% of a year, by the way, is about 8.5 months. So if you run the thing for 8.5 months, you've kind of like paid off that discount, and then everything after, so for the remainder of the year, you're now quote unquote in the money, so to speak. And lastly, the optimal coverage point. I think this is one we could probably have our own half hour on, but this is the idea that during volatile or cyclical compute usage patterns, it's like, where do you draw the line of commitment between those like troughs and peaks?
Matt, one of the things that I'm noticing is that we're not talking about, or I don't see like utilization. Is utilization metrics key to understand how your application or how the stuff is performing in order for you to avoid waste?
Yeah, so that's key to this concept, that last green highlight there, optimal coverage point. So the common approach that we see is that folks will draw a line of commitment up to their troughs only, and this achieves perfect, quote unquote, utilization. It's 100%. I've not wasted any of my commitment dollars. But I guess I would answer your question with another question and say, would you rather have perfect 100% utilization and a 30% savings rate, or let's say 90% utilization and a 40% savings rate? I'd pick the latter.
Yeah, I
Right?
would
So
definitely say more. Yeah, I was visualizing the number like 3,100, 4090, and yeah, I would like to get more savings out of it. I mean, definitely, who wouldn't want to?
yeah, so ProsperOps feels that, and I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but ProsperOps feels that savings is the point and not utilization or coverage percentages. You want to optimize savings. That's what we're trying to achieve.
I like that optimized savings where you're optimizing, like, you're always looking at optimizing the utilization. If you're optimizing the savings, the most savings that you can get within your environment, then I can see it. You're honestly saving more. You're achieving your results and minimizing your cloud spend.
Yeah, bingo. So, all right, we've broken down a little bit of rate versus usage optimization. We have a basic understanding of commitment-based discounts, perhaps. Let's discuss this common wisdom about how you approach these distinct concepts. My guess is everyone that's in attendance here recognizes that book, maybe has a copy nearby or saved on their laptop. So I'll just skip that intro and go right to the meat of this. So there's a couple of excerpts I've snapped here. I'm going to take the time to read them, just to set the stage. So page 231, you can see they suggest that going forward, you should take into account the amount of usage optimizations available to your organization before committing to rate optimizations. Secondly, a little bit later on, usage optimization can cause rate optimization issues due to the usage you've committed to being removed based on the recommendations. It's crucial to take usage optimization into account when performing rate optimization to avoid making commitments on usage that will change. This is like the main problem, right? There's the suggestion is that you should defer your rate optimization until your usage optimization is done, right?
Matt, there's a question from the audience. I got to pull this in because we are talking about commitment-based discounts. There are different types of commitment-based discounts, right? And wouldn't this guide differ based on the discount instrument that you're utilizing?
That's a good question. So this is true. So I actually agree. So this wisdom holds up if you're talking about a commitment instrument with an immutable term. This would be like AWS Compute Savings Plans, Instant Savings Plans, like an RDS RI, right? These have no recourse or ability to reduce point in time commitment. You can only go one way, and that's up, apart from letting them expire eventually. There are distinctly and importantly different types of discount instruments available to us. And these have other degrees of freedom. And if you use these more special discount instruments, you do not need to defer rate optimization until compute optimization is complete. And those, for example, are in Google Cloud, you've got committed use discounts because these can be merged and split. AWS standard RIs have the RI marketplace. This is where you can literally sell your commitment to a third party, which is another AWS customer. And then lastly, you have AWS convertible RIs. Convertible RIs don't have a marketplace. However, you can change any of the traits that you specify when you purchase an RI literally as often as you want. And this does not begin a new commitment term. By the way, ProsperOps uses the convertible RI as its primary mode of coverage. And ProsperOps has been using and perfecting the management of the convertible RI since 2018, actually.
Matt, are there any caveats to the convertible RIs or things that you should take into consideration when you're trying to utilize them or exchange them?
The CRI is really flexible. It's really more like on the other side of the fence. Like the standard RI has more limitations. Like for the first and last 30 days of a standard RI term, you can't offload it or sell it. There's also some recent changes to the marketplace we could get into. But the convertible RI, it's like any other RI, it's regional. So you're constrained to that region, but you can change any of the traits. So tenancy, platform, instance family, instance size, the quantity. You can literally change any of those things as often as you like. Perhaps it's worth mentioning on that standard RI marketplace change. This really wasn't a change of rules; it was a change of enforcement. The AWS service terms have always said you can't resell an RI that was purchased under a discount program. It's just that they didn't really enforce it, and that has changed the approach of some organizations and indeed some vendors. Prostrops was really affected by this because, as I said, we focus on the convertible and kind of always have. So I want to transition. So I think we've talked about the current wisdom, right? Let's talk about, the whole thing that's challenging is that, as I sort of said earlier, usage changes over time. Because if it didn't, of course, savings would be very simple. You just go buy the longest term you can at 100% coverage for the longest term you can buy to get the best discount, and you're done. But of course, usage changes, and to that point, this is just some stuff off the top of my head. Did I mention I was an engineer? This is a wall
that actually goes with our first topic of engineering-led optimization right into you're an engineer, and now we're going to go.
Yeah. So just off the top of my head, don't read all this. It's a wall of text, but this is why your compute usage may change over time, right? Lift and shift, you might kind of like size one way and then realize it can be a little different because you're going to fine tune it in the coming weeks or months. There's all sorts of cyclicality, seasonality to businesses, whether it's organic or inorganic via like M&A activity. You might move from a database on EC2 to a managed service like RDS. There's all sorts of, as I said earlier, like architectural efficiencies to serverless or containers or what have you. You may move away from a paid OS like Ubuntu Pro or Windows to just Amazon Linux. There's always generational updates that are coming. You may move to ARM microarchitecture. It doesn't really matter. The point is that this stuff is, anyone that's been anywhere near the cloud recognizes this stuff is always happening. So, and this is in the context that, again, the idea of deferring your rate optimization until after your usage optimization is done, to me, as a former engineer, is frankly kind of silly, because usage optimization is never done, John. Just never ends.
I was going to ask you if this is a once and done thing, because here's some of the things when you talked about right sizing, right, and optimizing your environment, and somebody analyzes it and says, oh, you need to right size here, and they think they're done with it. But in actuality, you've kind of tailored it towards the business and the business needs that are happening. You right sized it this month, or you kind of did some optimization for it, but it's always continuous, right?
Yeah, exactly. And sure, you might feel like you're done, for now, but think of it in terms of if I'm buying a 3-year savings plan, are you done? Are you done with that usage optimization for 3 years? Because that's kind of the disconnect. Like the app life cycles, it's rarely in like a 3-month block. It's more like, yeah, it's going to be like this for a year, or it's going to be this way for 6 months, and I'm going to make some changes. Let's actually pursue that. Let's just consider a singular application. And let's just say that this is one application managed by one team, and it doesn't really matter what the time scale is. It could be 2 years, it could be 8 months. It doesn't really matter. But let me just belabor this point of stuff changes just a little bit more. Let's say they launch an app and it's on an M6 large. It doesn't really matter. That costs something. $87.60, I think in East One it would cost on a monthly basis. Next, they realized, you know what, Graviton, an ARM microarchitecture, has better price performance. We can kind of do the same thing. So the app team and the engineers get together and they move it. And now it's going to run on that instance type. That's $70 a month versus 87. Sometime later, now it's just now we're just going to do a generational. We're still on Graviton, but we're going to go from an M6G to an M7G just to take advantage of the incremental performance improvements. So consider that you've bought into the idea that convertible RIs are the way to go, because unlike savings plans, they can actually be adjusted for these new realities, where a savings plan is just a immutable 1 or 3 year commitment, and that's kind of it. So let's say you've bought into the convertible RI methodology. Here's what you'd have to do if you were managing this just one app manually. So you launch your M6I larges, ideally in the same moment you buy a convertible RI. That's an also M6I large quantity 1 in whatever region this is. Great. Now we change it to an M6G large. So ideally in the same moment you make that engineering change, you make the rate optimization change. So you would have to actually coordinate the engineering side and the financial side, because if you didn't synchronize that activity, what you'd have is RIs still for M6I larges, but now that instance is gone, so you're just wasting that commitment. And now I have an M6G large that's completely uncovered because I just moved to it and I didn't adapt my financial universe quick enough. So it's kind of a double whammy. Like you're paying for something you're not using, and the new thing you have is uncovered. It's a bad situation that you want to avoid, right? So you can see that just on this singular application, managing or matching the financial universe manually to the engineering universe is very, very challenging.
Matt, I have so many questions from that. One, and I know we're going to have to talk about automation because you just said tee everything up and like make this change all the time. Here's my concern. I'm looking at my M6I large, right? And then I want to move over to my M6G large. And even if I coordinate this and I change from one to the other, aren't I re-upping my term agreements each time I do it? And now I've went from this is 1 year or a 3 year, and then I did it a couple months later. Now I just did another 3 year, and then I did a couple months later, and then I did another 3 year, and it's just ever changing.
Yeah, so that's one of the many reasons FinOps uses the convertible RI. With convertible RIs, that is not the case. I can in simple terms, let's say I've got a 36-month convertible RI commitment. I can actually modify any of those traits. So I could make that M6I 3 year, and 34 months down the line, like with just 2 months left of the term, I can actually make that change to an M6G. And I did not begin a new 3 year term. It still expires on the 36th month. So they're very, very special in that way. If you were using standard RIs, sure, you could sell one, but then you got to buy a new one to replace it. And now if you're using standards, I've now committed to a net new 1 or 3 year term. But with convertibles, you don't have to. And it's a huge superpower.
I love Alex's comment. So what you're saying is consider convertible RIs. Yes. I think he's thank you, Alex, for the comment. My other question for you, and I know I touched on it in the beginning, is automation. You just said that I have to basically coordinate my change as a person, coordinate it with finance who's purchasing or procuring it. And now what if, obviously my email didn't happen, my message, they're out on vacation. You can't do this manually, man.
Yeah, that's kind of
look, there's a slide for it.
Yeah. That's kind of our assertion. Like achieving optimal savings outcomes requires automation. Like it's so hard just in that single example. Now let's imagine, you're a large enterprise and you have, tens or hundreds of thousands of instances. It's literally impossible with even a large team of humans. So real high level, FinOps ingests engineering changes in real time, and our algorithms, again, just apply that objective math. Oh, a thing changed. Let's change my financial universe to suit. FinOps, very importantly, is not a recommendation tool. So it's not like we have a dashboard that says, oh, you should do X, Y, Z, consider this. We're literally just applying objective math around the clock, like during holidays, on weekends, during personnel changes. Like we see DIYers that have smart people doing this quite well manually, or at least, well in the context of it's a human. But then like there's turnover, and now that like key resource, like we can literally see their savings drop when someone's on vacation or there's personnel turnover. Again, automation solves all these problems. Like FinOps works when everyone else is sleeping or on vacation. You get that freedom, you get that time back. So that's super important. Let me just do a couple more. Yep. I know the clock's ticking, but let's look at just what we're talking about in terms of when we take the convertible RI, we pair it with automation, what can we achieve? Well, we can achieve what's impossible otherwise, like with more rigid instruments like a savings plan or a standard RI. I literally now have vertical flexibility. where like a savings plan is very horizontally flexible. Like that's awesome. It goes across Fargate and Lambda and regions, but it doesn't give me any vertical flexibility, and I can't undo a savings plan. I can just wait for it to expire. The convertible RI, when paired with automation, we can literally decline or reduce our point in time dollar amount commitment to AWS. Now, a marketing slide is a marketing slide. This, on the other hand, is an actual screenshot of a customer console of ours. You can see a dramatic reduction. This is monthly compute usage, by the way. They were spending 1.8 million a month, and through engineering optimization, now spend about 600K a month. It's probably saying the obvious, but if they were committed on the left side of this graph to like 80% with a savings plan, they'd be in huge trouble with their leadership or their CFO, CTO, whatever, right? Because they'd be underwater on that commitment. But you can see that, so that the green layer is the visualization for the flexible convertible RI layer that's managed by ProsperOps. And you can see it perfectly tracks down that usage optimization. This is again, like you can go ahead and do your engineering optimizations, but you can still have rate optimization happening in parallel, right?
Matt, I think you should have had a cake on this screen. This was a perfect
Probably, right?
analogy of.
Yeah, I should start over. So that was kind of like a macro example. This last one, this is a very typical, like more like daily utilization. So this is the very common pattern that a lot of groups have that I see in the data. And it's, very simply, you shut down stuff on the weekends, you come back up during the business days. And you can see that the flexible layer shown there in green is able to match that usage as it comes up during the business days and then back down on the weekends. And again, this is just reacting in real time. It would also cover a bubble period or any kind of like anomalous usage spike. It would cover that as well. So again, I hope it's clear that the automation and the convertible RI together are this superpower for savings.
Man, I got to ask the tough question. Can you go back to that slide? I have to ask the question on it because right now I'm noticing a dynamic pattern, right? Usage up and down, go through it. And I know that, ProsperOps deals with a lot of the dynamic stuff, but is there a reason to have like savings plans with convertible RIs or at all?
Yeah. Super question. So the objective answer to how much savings plan do I need is the amount that covers your Fargate and Lambda, because Fargate and Lambda can only be covered by a savings plan. Additionally, you might have like other regions that are like for Sandbox or Dev or their air gap for some reason, and they just have like a couple $100 to spend a month. Savings plans are great to get coverage in those regions with small usage. That's kind of it. Beyond that, why wouldn't you want a flexible layer that has no long-term commitment risk and can adapt to your engineering realities in real time? Whereas a savings plan is a rigid instrument for 1 or 3 years that has zero recourse. I mean, the answer seems fairly obvious to me. I'll let the others draw their own conclusions.
I like that. Matt, thank you so much. This has been really informative. A lot of information, not only from the entire team. Matt, I am going to drop you in a second, but I did want to show an awesome comment here from Erik. A huge shout out, like literally calling out some of the savings that they're achieving utilizing ProsperOps. So Erik, thank you for that information. Matt, I will drop you. I'm going to do some closing remarks real quick, and then I want to pull everybody back on for one final magic trick and obviously the raffle. So don't go anywhere. Matt, thank you.
Thanks, Chad.
All right. So now it's just going to be me. I'm going to hang out here for a second with everybody. Thank you all for sticking around for this awesome webinar, Cloud FinOps event. This is our first of the year. We got many more happening. We will highlight some of the other events shortly. We're going to splash them on the screen, what's going on, but I got to do some of my closing remarks before we raffle off this awesome Oculus. First, a huge shout out and a thank you not only to our guest speaker, Marit Hughes. Thank you for coming on here and sharing your wisdom on Cloud FinOps. Our participating sponsors, Veeam, Hyperg Glance, Cloud Zero, and ProsperOps. We talked about, starting savvy, right? The 3 essential things: engineering-led optimizations, backups, and usage and rate optimizations with have your cake and eat it too. Matt, I'm going to have to get a cake for our next one in Splash when we see each other in person. I got to thank you, Erik, Steve, Sam, and Matt for joining for this event as well. I got to thank you for my support staff that is virtual and here in the room helping us out. I really appreciate I couldn't do it myself. Now, let's talk about some of the upcoming webinars. And I told you I'd make this quick because we got to get to the final magic. Our upcoming webinar that we're talking about, we have AI and FinOps. Yes, AI and FinOps. If anybody's interested in joining, our AI and FinOps, I'll put it on the screen. Can I hide myself or camera or anything? Oh, you know what? We'll do let's see, does it? Oh, sorry, I got minimized. It doesn't like AI and FinOps on the screen, so there's no background for it. But don't worry, you saw it. All right, so AI and FinOps would splash on the screen. If you're interested in this upcoming webinar, reach out to me. This was going to be a hot one based off of all our discussion. Automation is going to definitely play a key part in that. Yeah, you know what? We'll do some Mac stuff because AI and FinOps. All right, our next one, I want to put it on the screen real quick, is we're going to talk about security in the cloud. Throw this here on the screen real quick. All right, now you saw our security in the cloud. If you're interested in this, once again, reach up. We got to talk about cloud and security. Okay, enough of me and enough of all the other events and the shout outs for everybody. Let's get everybody back on to the event. And let's do our final magic. Sorry, it's going to take a moment as we bring everybody back on. So hang tight. And we're getting on there. Who do we got? Who's our... Oh, we don't have some... There we go. Steve's on there. Perfect. Oh, I definitely don't want to be front and center. All right, Rory's front and center. Yes.
Awesome.
Are we missing anybody? Nope, we're good. All right, let's do this. Rory, it's all yours to amaze everybody.
Awesome. All right, so how have you enjoyed it so far? Not everyone at once. Okay.
I think everybody did want to go at once.
He was smiling. Okay, so this is our last game we're going to get to play, and it's called Anything in the World. Okay, so I am fascinated with the concept of free will and free choice. So Sam, I'm going to start with you, and that's my choice. Sam, would you like to use yourself or choose someone else from the panel?
I'm done being freaked out for today. How about the last presenter? He hasn't been involved in a
Okay, Matt. So Matt, that was a free choice, yes? So Matt, we haven't set this up either. That's important to go through, that we didn't prearrange anything. Do we agree with that?
I have no idea what's happening.
Fantastic. That makes my job a lot easier. Now, earlier I had Steve phone a friend, and I had him name a playing card, or her name a playing card. What I'm going to have you do is name any object in the world. It could be a tractor, it could be a horse, it could be a car, it could be a hamburger, it could be pizza, it could be any object. What object are you going for, Matt?
How about a green highlighter?
A green what?
Highlighter.
A green highlighter. So it's a completely free choice, yes?
Yep. Well, it was in front of me, so I just said it.
Okay, first thing that popped into your head, so it influenced you. Now, Matt, I'm going to try and influence you again. These are 3 magic books that I brought. I brought Harry Potter. I brought The Two Towers, Lord of the Rings. And I brought Firestarter. Which book would you like to use, Matt? It's up to you.
Let's go with The Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. Okay? Seems fair? Yes? Matt, I'm going to go through the book like this. You just call out the word stop.
Stop.
Okay? Can you see the book? I'm going to look away. Tell me when it's in focus.
Yep.
Got it? Can you see the first word on the page?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Okay? I'll get rid of the book. Once again, there's no way I know what it is. Matt, I want you to think about the word that you looked at. You have the word in your head?
I do.
Okay. Matt, I want you to spell the word out so you can see the word being spelled out.
You want me to spell it right now?
Not out loud, just in your head.
Oh, Got it.
Yes.
Done.
You got it?
Yep.
Now, either you're a good speller or it's a somewhat short word. Can you focus in on the last letter of the word?
Sure.
Okay. And can you think of a color that starts with that letter?
Yep.
Okay. I want you to go ahead and spell the color out.
Okay.
Okay. Now focus in on the last letter of the color.
Okay.
You think of a president that starts with that letter.
Sure.
Okay.
First name, last name.
You can
Doesn't
do
matter.
your last.
Okay. Sounds good.
Got it? Okay. And now go to the second letter of the president's name. And can you think of a fruit that starts with that letter?
Ooh.
Or what? Do it this way. Go to the second letter.
Second letter of the
Second,
president's name.
do their last name. Can you think of a fruit?
Yep. Got it. Second letter of the last name. No problem.
So now think about this for a second. So far, you're the last person on the show. You were chosen at random. When we started the show, we played the Wheel of Fortune, which was the beer bottle. Marit got it right, which means we had a show. Got it right. We went on to a Rubik's Cube prediction, which I predicted the Rubik's Cube. After the Rubik's Cube prediction, we went on to Obama. After Obama, we had 3 playing cards. Yes? What are you thinking of right now, Matt?
I'm mostly just nervous that you know what's inside of my brain.
What fruit did you think?
The fruit was an orange.
The fruit was an orange, and what was the color?
The color was teal.
Okay, and who was the person?
Lyndon B. Johnson.
So those are completely random, yes?
Yep.
What do you think of how many letters are in the name?
How many letters are in Lyndon B. Johnson?
Yes.
That would be 13.
See, that makes no difference because all of this was called anything in the world. Yes?
Yep.
I think originally you thought of a word. Was that word treachery?
That was the one. Yep.
What?
You thought of the word treachery. And look, inside of my wallet, before we started, I brought an envelope. Now, I didn't know they'd choose you. I didn't know that you would choose Lord of the Rings. Everything else was for distraction. Can you see this envelope?
Yep. It's got staples.
That looks stapled, yes?
Yep.
If I were to take this and I were to just tear it open, check this out. Can you see that?
Indeed.
But remember before we were talking about snapshots and pictures? I printed a picture of a green highlighter.
Get out of here. All right. That's just like that one.
All
right.
I just
You Matt.
I just want to know, like, I don't know what to say.
Ridiculous. Well done.
That was awesome, Rory. I loved it. I mean, green highlighter. Okay.
Rory,
Yes.
do you do FinOps forecasting, by any chance? Can we, all right, good,
Everyone
good.
on this program is learned a lot, and they're going to cut the costs, and
I
they're going
know.
to communication.
Can we get you, we need the Rory powered forecasting feature for cloud spend. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. Say a perfect catalog for all outcomes. That would be like a huge.
Yeah.
I love it. First of all, Rory, thank you. Everybody, do not go anywhere. I want to raffle off this Oculus and end the day for everybody. I got to thank everybody for participating, sticking around, coming back. for an awesome webinar. I got to thank all of our guest attendees that joined us for this event to watch and informed. If you enjoyed this, I suggest you look at all the attendees, including Rory. You go follow them on LinkedIn. There's a lot of information. Go check out Veeam, ProsperOps, Cloud Zero, and Hyperg Glance. Follow them for more. Now it's time to get the raffle going.